Getting close. Getting close. We have audio. Just let me know if you need to make an adjustment. Okay, President Alvarado, I think we are ready to begin. I'll hand it off to you.
All righty. Good evening. I call this meeting of the Vista Unified School District to order at 6:54. Please stand for the flag salute. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for being here. Before we get started, I'd like to say that the board appreciates and supports stakeholder input at our meetings. Engagement by members of the public in civic matters is a cornerstone of our democracy. Everyone should have a chance to express their opinions within the guidelines that the board has established for its meetings so that we are able to conduct the meeting effectively and efficiently. During the meeting, there will be a time for public to comment on all matters not on the agenda. In addition, members of the public may comment on any specific agenda item after I, as the board president, ask for public comment on an item. Until it is your turn to speak, or if you're just here to observe the meeting, please refrain from any behavior that prevents other people from participating in the meeting or that disrupts the board's ability to conduct the business of the board. This includes any conduct that prevents members of the board, district staff, or the person making public comment from speaking. We also ask that when you're called upon that you address the board only. While we assume that members of the public intend to participate in the meeting in a civil manner, and while legitimate criticism of the board is protected speech, we will not tolerate any threats of violence made to board members, staff, or any other members of the public. In the event that there's a threat of violence, the individual will be removed from the room whenever possible, and they'll be referred to law enforcement. In the event that the meeting is disrupted in a manner that prevents the board from proceeding with the agenda items for the meeting, we may choose to recess the meeting until order is restored. If order cannot be restored after a recess, we may choose to clear the room, move the meeting to a location where it will no longer be disrupted, or adjourn the meeting. Thank you for listening, and we'll do roll call. Trustee Morocco? Here. Here. Trustee Vargas?
Here.
Trustee Marco?
Here.
Trustee Martin?
Here.
Student trustee Allison Galiz?
Here.
Student trustee Dana Martinez?
Here.
Student trustee Fatima Zacarias Ramirez, and student board member Gia Farias.
Here.
All right, so we are all present and accounted for. Next on the agenda is 1C, administration. I'm sorry, talking into this is kind of weird. Oh, as you were, I need to acknowledge the land the sacred land that we sit on. All right, which is to be. We acknowledge the Payom Kawicham, the people of the West, as the traditional land caretakers of the land on which Vista Unified School District was built, and its surrounding traditional cultural landscapes. Today, the Payom Kawicham are known as Luiseño and are made up of 7 bands: La Joya, Paula, Palma, Pachanga, Rincon, San Luis Rey, and Saboba. We, Vista Unified School District, are mindful of the indigenous peoples in this place, and we pay our respects to the Luiseño, past, present, and future. We are grateful to have the opportunity to be part of this community in the Luiseño territory and to honor their history, culture, and perseverance of spirit. Thank you for reminding me. All right, next, the fun stuff. All right, we got 1C, administration of oath of office by the superintendent and or special guest for elected board members. And we'll begin with Cipriano Vargas. And we have a very honored guest in the house tonight. We have County Board of Supervisor Tara Lawson Raymer. Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
It's right in front here. And it would be good to get the microphone there so we can hear it. Do this whole. You're gonna leave.
Okay, can everyone hear?
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
I, Cipriano Vargas,
I, Cipriano Vargas,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith to the Constitution of the United States
and to the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. All right, congratulations.
All right, next, this is exciting. Administering the oath to trustee Marco will be his son Pax, along with Dr. Doyle assisting. So welcome, Pax, come on up.
Pieces.
I, Mike Markov,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties that I will be about to enter.
Nice.
And last but certainly not least, we have Zulema Gomez swearing in trustee Sue Martin. Come on up.
You good, so much.
I, Sue Martin,
I, Sue Martin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and I will well and faithfully discharge
and I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties
for which I'm about to enter. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, as trustee Martin's about to sit down officially, trustee, we're moving on with the agenda, and I will briefly take over the agenda because we're into item 3. That is the organizational meeting. We do this every December. Prior to me beginning with the process of identifying the new president for the year 25, we do, I believe, have one hold card. Julie Kelly.
Evening board. It's fun to be on this side of the dais. As you know, I've just wrapped up my term and I'm really proud of the work we created. I'm here speaking this evening because I care about that work very much. As you're about to have your organizational meeting. Some words that you, 3 of you just spoke, resonated with me, that you will well and faithfully discharge your duties. And to that, I want to expound and say that no school district can function effectively with a divided board, and it can't function effectively when its members treat the board as a battleground with winners and losers. Much like a baseball team, where players unite together to play their positions, the board has to have laser focus on its goal and agreed norms. If players decide to throw to third base when the play is at first, or otherwise change the focus of the game, their team loses. And similarly, a school board will fail students when it's divided and dysfunctional. And the charge, I would say, for all of you is clear: to create the pathways to high standards of achievement and well-being for all of our students, while also maintaining the solvency and sustainability of the district. You will not succeed at this without following sound governance protocols and looking to the experience of your fellow trustees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no further hold cards, so this process, I will begin opening the nominations for the president of the board. As soon as we're complete with identifying the new president of the board, I will hand it then off to the new president, and they will finish the nominations for the other members.
I nominate Cipriano Vargas.
Okay, we have one nomination on the table. Is there a second for Cipriano Vargas?
Second nomination. To second.
Who seconds the nomination for Cipriano Vargas? So we have a nomination and a second for Cipriano Vargas. Any discussion? We'll start in order. We'll start with trustee Martin.
No comment?
No comment.
Happy to serve. Thank you for the nomination. I've done this before, and with, as we look at the future, I know that we have incredible team and at the same time challenges at the state federal level. But with that, if I am selected, I will work hard to represent all of our constituents, students, parents, business owners, stakeholders. And so thank you for the honor of being nominated.
Thank you very much. Trustee Morocco.
Is, point of order, is there a process to this, or is it just whoever gets nominated is automatically nominated, or can other nominations be taken?
You could have a second nomination. We're in the middle of discussion.
When does that second nomination take place?
If the board pleases, we can do it on 2 rounds of nominations. This is a board election, so you can deliberate.
I'd like to nominate Rena Morocco for board president.
Okay, so there's a second nomination for Marina Morocco. There's a nomination for Marina Morocco, a second potential candidate. Is there a second?
I second this up.
Okay, so now we have a second. Before we finish that, trustee Morocco, any comments on the first nomination for Cipriano Vargas?
No.
Thank you very much. Trustee, go ahead.
Yeah, I nominated trustee Vargas because trustee Vargas has worked diligently the past 8 years, has led the board through very difficult times through COVID pandemic, through budget cuts, opening, closing schools. He has the demeanor and the tact to lead this board as we move forward. He has experience and he works well with our governance team along with our executive board and cabinet. He's from the community. He was born and raised here. And he understands the unique needs that our youth face as one of the younger trustees on the school board.
Thank you, trustee Alvarado. So we'll do the similar process for the other individual that was nominated, trustee Morocco. We'll start with Ms. Martin.
Rena is, excuse me, Rena Morocco is very well experienced in this. We also need new leadership on this board. It's one of the things that I ran on, and I support her presidency.
Thank you very much. Trustee,
No comment.
next trustee Vargas,
No comment.
trustee Morocco.
Yeah, I'm very much committed to making sure that our meetings end on time. I believe that I have, trustee Alvarado has done a great job doing that. I would like to continue that. I would like to make sure, I believe that all voices should be heard. Especially us board members, we have discussions that need to be done. I also have, think that our agendas need to be reorganized so that people that are here early can see what we're voting on versus sitting through a bunch of presentations that can be realistically done at the end of the meeting. So that is why I'm running, and I think I'm happy to be nominated, and I anticipate doing big things. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Morocco. Trustee Alvarado.
I have concerns with the possibility of you leading the board for very simple reasons. One is you have refused to sign our governance handbook or adhere to the very basic tenets of what governance is. At one of our meetings, you stormed out. You didn't offer edits. Then you refused to come to the second governance meeting. Didn't even show up. As the clerk of the board, there was a vote with the unaudited actuals, and because you didn't agree with it, even though the board voted to receive it, you signed it under duress. And that's a very basic skill. It's a very basic role of being the clerk of the board, yet you signed it under duress. One of the things about being a board is that once the board decides on a vote, that you stand with the board in its decision. I'm also concerned that during some of our meetings over the past couple of years, you're watching baseball on your phone when you should be involved in the meeting, not watching baseball on your phone. And those are just very basic things that we would expect from norms, whether you are on a governance team, a school leadership team, a grade level team. There's just basic rules of decorum. And I'm also concerned about the way some of our staff is addressed and spoken to. And some of the people who come and present to us as well, some of the people who come and like consultants, they're addressed in a manner that doesn't follow the value of respect. And I don't feel it's a very good example for our stakeholders, not our students, not our staff members, not our families. So I would be concerned because you couldn't even commit to basic governance over the past 2 years. And that makes me sad.
Trustee Morocco, would you like to respond? And then we'll have trustee Vargas respond, and then we'll.
I would. The governance team that put together the governance handbook, I had grave concerns about this handbook in the sense that basically I was told while this was going on by one of my former board members that this was done in order to tell me how I should vote. That's not for anybody else's job to tell me how I should vote. I vote the way that the people that I represent want me to vote. And I've always held that to be the utmost and putting our children's best interest first every single time. The idea that I'm watching baseball on my phone is not true. The baseball game is on, I glance at it when we're in between subjects, but I am fully attentive to what is going on in the meeting, and I don't think that there'd be anybody in here who has been paying attention to my performance from the dais that would doubt that, number one. So that was, you sit all the way over here, I sat all the way over there. So how you would even know that is, I don't even know how you would even know that if the game is on other trustees. One of them is running for president right now. One of them is, here. Oftentimes are doing emails or looking at texts on their phones. There are things that go on that we're on the dais, but there are things that may not always be as they appear to be, just to the casual observer. So I come to these meetings fully prepared. I don't think that trustee Vargas can say that, because there's been plenty of times when I have brought things up and I'm ready to move on and he's not, or there's certain questions that are asked that should have been, if anybody reading the materials and coming to the meetings prepared, having read the agenda, having kept up on the Friday letters, would have known. So I am not sure about your concerns. I don't think that your concerns are well-founded. I have always maintained professional decorum. When I'm talking to people from the floor, when I'm asking questions, I think that I have a right to ask questions, and if somebody says something that is misinforming this board, I think I have a right to speak up. And, I'm not sure what you're talking about, honestly. I think most people, the vast majority of people that pay attention, that come to these meetings on a regular basis, constantly comment about how professional I am from this dais under tremendous stress and attack. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Morocco. Trustee Vargas, any final comments?
Yeah, just happy to continue service. Once again, if it's the pleasure of the board, I've done it before. I've been reelected 3 times, and with, proud of the work and the accomplishments, not just representing District 4, but the entire community of Vista Unified, both the city of Vista and the city of Oceanside. So if it's once again the wish of the board, I would happily serve in the capacity as president. Thank you.
Okay, so we've had two potential presidents nominated, and we've had a second for both. And each board member has had a chance to provide feedback and their thoughts, and both potential candidates have had an opportunity to rebut anyone's comment. Is everyone comfortable and ready to move to the vote? Okay, so this is a different kind of a vote. It's not an action item. It's voting for the representative for the office of president. So what we'll do is we'll roll call the person that you would like to serve as the president. Of course, you can only vote once. You ready for roll call? Okay. Trustee Martin?
Rena Morocco,
Trustee Marco?
Rena Morocco.
Trustee Vargas?
Vargas,
Trustee Alvarado? Oh, Morocco?
Rena Morocco.
Trustee Vargas? Trustee Alvarado, sorry.
Trustee Vargas.
All right. Thank you. Serena, congratulations. We're gonna do.
I guess they just give the name.
Yeah, the name tag. Good. You want me to help you with that?
Let's see.
This is you.
Okay, and this is Martha.
Marcus.
Martha.
Yeah, you will hold this. It's right there. And then go. Minutes of the process. We'll submit it. Thank you, have your adjustment.
Thank you. Are those, we haven't.
Yeah.
What the agenda is there. And I lost my agenda off my computer screen. Okay, so we are going to now elect the vice president of the board. And I would like to nominate Sue Martin.
I'll second.
Like to nominate Martha Varela.
Second.
So, I will, Mr. Vargas, would you like to say first?
Yeah, with that, I think, Martha has done a phenomenal job as president, as you just complimented her, and so I would, I'd like to see, continues in the leadership. I know that, being, having served as board president and vice president, 4 years collectively, I think, there's a benefit from having, that experience and expertise, and so with, happy to nominate my colleague Martha. Thank you.
Okay, we will start with, how about if we start with, I will go to you, trustee Alvarado.
I accept the nomination. It is important to have, leadership, experience. It is a lot of work and, I've done it, I believe I've done it well. I've been very dedicated to my, role as president, and I'm sure I can continue to support in this capacity. And yeah, I'm happy to continue serving if that is the will of the board.
And I will speak. Well, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and let trustee Martin speak first, and then Morgan and I will finish.
I would be happy to serve as vice president. I don't have experience on the dais, but I have a lot of experience in this district.
Once again, no comment.
So for me, I do think that we need some new leadership here in the board. Trustee Alvarado, you've done a commendable job as a board president, but you have not always given people the time, all of your fellow colleagues time to speak. I have concerns about that. I also have concerns that, for example, I reached out to help plan the agenda this last go round and I was prohibited from doing so. That's not a personal thing. It's just that there was, a respectful request from a colleague. And there was really no viable reason for disallowing it. And I also have asked for things to be on the agenda. Case in point, about 18 months ago, I asked to have an agenda item discussing CSBA and its role on the board and whether we want, the viability. I had questions about it. That was never put on the board agenda, and that is against ed code. Actually, I think it's against just governance law. So I do have concerns. I think trustee Martin, the one thing that she really brings to this dais and for experience is leadership in this Vista Unified School District, having been a teacher in this district, having been, she's been on the bargaining team, so she understands a lot of the stuff that we talk about in closed session with regard to, contract negotiations and things like that. She's a very good resource for that, and I really think that she would be an asset to this board for that reason. And I've come to know her to be very responsible and very always putting the kids first. So I share my full support.
I'm gonna answer to those, I don't know what statements. First and foremost, until a person, a trustee gets sworn in, the board members are still doing their job to the minute before the new board is sworn in. And every decision that I make, I'll run through our legal team and they will tell me what is appropriate. Second of all, there's Zoom videos to show who has spoken and how much time folks are speaking. And for sure, it wasn't me speaking, when I was running the presidents the most, and I gave ample time. If it was the will of the board to expand discussion, then it was expanded. You personally complained about the length of the meetings when you were running for a school board and how ridiculous the time frame was, and I was able to shorten those board meetings to about 10:45 as opposed to 11:59. And that's not always easy, and many times I chose not even to weigh in if it didn't change the outcome of a vote. So there's receipts on who speaks the most or who has spoken the most. And also that I always would put it out there, if it's the will of the board to extend discussion, we will. And I pride myself in that professionalism and following Robert's Rules of Orders and the governance handbook. And I did a better job that I've seen in 8 years. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, and with that, we will commence with the vote. Trustee Vargas, I'll start with you.
Alvarado,
Trustee Alvarado,
I vote for myself, trustee Alvarado.
and trustee Martin,
I vote for myself, Martin.
trustee Markov,
I vote for Sue Martin.
and I vote for Sue Martin. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, take all the time you need to get settled in.
Will help you with your name tag there? Good.
You ready? Yep. Okay. I will now entertain nominations for clerk.
I nominate Mike Markov.
I second. Is there anybody who wants to start commenting? Okay, so I will let the maker of the motion follow Robert's rules. Vice President Martin, would you like to speak your nomination?
Mike would be an excellent clerk on this board. I support him fully.
Trustee Alvarado, would you like to speak?
Welcome if you're gonna take the position as clerk. I would hope though that as a clerk of the board, that you sign documents that the board votes to approve and not write under duress when you have a document that the board approved, because that's not in line with board governance.
I will sign as the board votes. That's fine with me. Thank you.
Trustee Vargas?
no comment.
And I would like to say that as the outgoing clerk, trustee Markov will do an amazing job. It's not a heavy lift, it's just signing documents. So, so I will, glad to have you fill my shoes. Thank you. So you two need to switch.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. You're right. Thank you. Thank you, trustee Alvarado. Okay, so we will start with Vice President Martin. Go ahead.
Yes, for Mike Markov.
Trustee Alvarado.
Aye.
Trustee Marco.
Aye.
Trustee Vargas.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Congratulations, Lord Clerk Margot.
Here's the background. He's getting rid of the rest.
Grant. Coffee.
If you want, is there a precedent?
Do my fellow trustees, would you like a break right now, or are we good?
Just excusing.
We're good, okay, we can keep going. So at this point, I'd like to excuse, is it the student board members?
Yeah.
No, all students.
If there's any students here inside.
If there's any students that are here for school credit, you may now be excused. There will be teachers in the back that can sign your cards for you. So you are excused. You're welcome to stay. We love to have our students stay and engage in the civic process. But you are excused.
Student board member.
Okay, and let's keep this moving.
You're probably you have to take a break.
Yeah, okay, so you know what, I'm thinking, can we just take a quick 5-minute break so that our new trustees can take pictures with their family and loved ones and what have you? Okay, so 5 minutes, we will be back in let's get to 6 minutes, 7:35.
The next thing.
For your test. Thank you.
get started again. I would like anybody that took the whole part, I just want to thank you for your patience. All right, so, we're at 4A, report of actions taken in closed session. There were no actions taken in closed session. All right, and so next it will be the approval of the agenda. I will entertain, a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion, we need a second. So go ahead and second. Oh, I'll second, sorry, I'll second, I'm sorry, I can do that. Okay, so the motion was, made by trustee Markov and seconded by, trustee Morocco, and, is there any discussion?
I'd like to pull item 17O from this month's agenda.
Okay, 17O, seeing, I don't have any objections with that. So, we will approve, would trustee Markup, care to amend his motion to approve the agenda, without item 17O on it?
Did you want to ask for a discussion? Did the other board members have any discussion?
Is there any discussion on this? I don't know, is this?
17O.
Is this a motion though? I just did for the agenda. Yes, is there any
Well, you
discussion?
still have to discuss. 17O.
Yes.
So we're removing it from the agenda entirely, not discussing it tonight. Is there a reason?
Yes, as a new board member, I need more time to look at the Vita Rancho Minerva issue before we spend $48,000 on architecture, and I'm asking the board's indulgence and giving me another month. I have no problem if it's on next month's agenda.
Is there any time sensitive things, Dr. Doe?
No, there's no impact on time sensitivity this time. However, if we don't bring it back in the near month, January or so, it could become time sensitive. Perfect.
Thank you, Dr. Doyle. Any further discussion? Okay, with the maker of the motion, trustee Markle, would you be willing to amend your motion to, approve the agenda minus item 17O?
I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda minus 17O.
Okay, and I will reiterate my second to that new amended motion. And so any further discussion at all? And any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, 5-0. Thank you.
Ready for the next item?
Yeah, okay, wait, we'll get back to it. Moving on, I have to go back to my computer.
Fix it.
6A, it's superintendent comments. Take your word for it.
Face up.
Okay, superintendent's, item 6A, superintendent comments. Dr. Doyle?
Thank you, President Morocco. I'm going to hold my comments for tonight because we're running very late.
Thank you. And item 7A, we are, this is public comment. So first on the agenda is James Murphy, come to the agenda, and I believe, is it 2 minutes that they have? 3 minutes. You will have 3 minutes to speak. I would like to remind you to make sure you
Push and hold.
push and hold while you talk.
Thank you.
Uh.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you guys for having me. I am here to talk about an assignment that was showed into my daughter's classroom. I'm going to read the assignment. I do have a picture, but that's, neither here nor there. It says, stand in a circle. Each of you is now gay or lesbian, and you're about to begin your coming out process. You cannot talk for the rest of this activity. I don't see how this is part of the California curriculum for education. There's nothing that it does other than groom children. It's not okay, it's disgusting, and it should not be allowed. I was told by the vice principal of Rancho, the first time I called, that it was not part of the curriculum. I then emailed Dr. Villarreal. He emailed me back saying, oh no, this is definitely part of the curriculum, this specific activity. Then he had one of his other vice principals call me to confirm that it was really part of this curriculum. I have tried to get into contact with Dr. Villarreal over the phone about 7 times, 8 times and just failed every single time. He has not reached out to me himself personally, other than the first email contact that we had. I have reached out to Dr. Matt Doyle. I do understand that we will be having a meeting between January 6th and the 13th, I believe. So there is that. I don't think that this assignment should ever be taught to any children. It does not do anything other than groom them. Should not be allowed. Anybody who teaches this should be fired immediately. That's all I have to say about it.
Okay, thank you. Just so that you know, if you've not spoken before, we can't respond from the
I
dais.
understand.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next is Nathan Bettis.
Thank you. Congratulations to the new members and the returning members of the board. Over the past month, a false narrative has been spread online about RBV. Personal attacks and innuendos that have crossed the line have been lobbed at my RBV community, and our students are watching. Therefore, I want to ensure that you know the facts. One, the screenshot that was shared online is from one slide from one lesson. It is taken out of context, and the author of these posts does not care to elaborate or explain the activity. The lesson in question, students are allowed to participate, observe, or even step outside. Due to the sensitive nature of this lesson, emotions can get brought up that can get really what's called tense at times, as is flowing through me right now. The lesson itself is in alignment with the state-approved health curriculum, which is also known as the California Healthy Youth Act. This act went into effect in 2016. All parents of these students received a notice in their student syllabus that this elective class would be following the state-approved health curriculum. A teacher who teaches this is a credentialed math teacher. However, he is also allowed under his credential to teach this in his freshman seminar elective class. This activity was originally provided by the Equity Project in conjunction with the training provided by the San Diego County Office of Education. It was not created by the classroom teacher being spoken about online. These are the facts of the situation, not what's being portrayed online or anything that you might have just heard. This false information attacks not just one, but all of us here at the USD. The original author has gone so far as to share the classroom teacher's social media photographs, full name, and other information obtained in an attempt to shame and bully this teacher. Accusations such as claiming this teacher was grooming, indoctrinating, and even going so far as to use the term pedophile in their comments about the situation. People with no connections to our community or even our state have started to flood RBV social media accounts with additional unfounded accusations and slanderous statements. Ironically, all of these stem from a lesson that's about tolerance and empathy. I would like to be sitting at home right now doing some of my grading of my final exams.
I can't help but think of my own experience at RBV in the late 90s. Bullies like this made life hell for me. I was closeted, scared, fearful, and thought about ending my life on multiple occasions. If there was a lesson that let me know I too was valued, or that there was nothing wrong with the way I was born and I could actually talk to my teachers as myself, I might actually remember school a lot more and not suppress so many memories. It's because of my lived experience. I must stand before you and ask we continue to promote lessons that teach empathy and inclusion for LGBTQ+ and other marginalized groups.
I want to share that all of our students are RBV, to all of our students at RBV. And I want them to know that they have a system here with VUSD that will stand with them. I want to show these students that we will stand up to these bullies. I ask that you as our board, please provide this district with the same materials and the resources for us to continue these lessons and courses that emphasize inclusion, diversity, and empathy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you and good evening, trustees. My name is Candace Cordes and I'm here wearing many proverbial hats. I currently serve as the VTA Equity Chair. I've also served for 26 years as a teacher, administrator, and coach. And most importantly, as a parent of a VUSD salutatorian whose intersectional identity includes being multi-ethnic and transgender, and who spent most of their community service efforts focused on leading social justice at Vista High School. As I mentioned, I'm an ally and a parent of a transgender person who attended and graduated from schools at VUSD. So my lived experience of having a front row seat to the journey in our system is equally valid to others who may share their stories here or on social media. One difference is my presence here is that I am here to share both perspectives. My child experienced both racism and bigotry simply because of their identity as both a person of color and trans individual. The epithets and racial slurs, like the N-word with the hard R, were an everyday occurrence. Every day they heard that word being used near them and often about them. Parents, imagine sitting in a room full of California state leaders in education, superintendents, principals. Your child who now attends Cal Berkeley is getting an award. In their interview video, they state that their struggle has been feeling not enough, not Black enough, not white enough, not feminine enough, not masculine enough, just not enough. While we did everything we could in our home to let them know they were enough, they lived a life where society absolutely challenged them with that belief that they were not enough. Imagine for a moment it's your child who comes home and says, I can't participate in prom court or senior superlatives because there's no place for me. The superlatives in prom court are gendered and there's no place for me. Regardless of how you feel about the issue of gender identity, imagine your child lives in existence where people in their community, the place they have to go 180 days a year, says they don't exist. There's no place for them there. Imagine that was your child, because it's mine. As an educator, I see our job is to ensure safe learning environments for our students. When a student wore a t-shirt to school with the words, there are only two genders, and was collecting signatures, and then proceeded to display that t-shirt in front of a gym full of students at the rally, an unsafe environment for a student was created and others like them. That student has every right to hold their beliefs. However, when beliefs become action that generate harm for others, it's our duty to ensure safety of all students. There's been public ridicule of educators supporting CAF rules for gender inclusivity in athletics. Another more recent instance of vitriol on social media regarding lessons about empathy reminds us of the work to be done. These attacks from adults aimed at our educators, where our children are watching how we interact, may seem out of our purview as leaders to address in education. However, it is our duty to ensure we create a safe learning environment for our students. Far too long, the system has allowed the muting of marginalized groups. Some are in opposition of addressing this reality. Some are loudly speaking and spreading misinformation, most of us are seeking compassion and understanding. It is our job to educate, which means parents like myself have the ability to share their perspective and act as advocates for all students in our schools. This is our most important role, the role of ensuring safe learning environments for all students. Thank you
so much. Thank you. Okay, the next is Cynthia, Joyce? That's Joy. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I actually worked for the district. I'm a bus driver for SPED. And I saw this particular incident that happened at the school. This has absolutely zero to do with education, okay? Yes, we do have sex ed, but this, I'm totally disgusted. I'm disgusted. I'm ashamed I work for this district that you guys allow this to happen in our schools. This doesn't do anything for our children. All it does is confuse them. And I'm just, yeah, I'm out of here at the end of the week, and actually, I'm very glad I am.
Thank you. Next would be Carrie Anderson.
Good evening, everyone. First, congratulations to our new and returning board members. Today, I want to talk about something that has been a topic of much online discussion recently, the need to provide safe spaces in schools for LGBTQ+ students. At a time when issues of identity, gender, and sexuality are increasingly part of public conversations, especially on social media, schools play an essential role in ensuring that every student feels safe, valued, and respected. But unfortunately, this idea doesn't come without backlash. Some argue that providing a safe space or promoting education about student issues may somehow disrupt the community or threaten traditional values. However, I believe this is a misconception that we need to continue addressing thoughtfully and thoroughly using our district value of equity. The truth is, the importance of these safe spaces cannot be overstated. Studies have shown that LGBTQ+ students face higher rates of bullying, harassment, and discrimination compared to their heterosexual peers. A 2021 study by the Trevor Project found that nearly 42% of LGBTQ+ youth considered suicide in the past year, with rates of suicide attempts more than four times higher than LGBTQ+ youth than their straight peers. Think about that for a moment. Nearly half of our LGBTQ+ youth have felt that hopeless, and many struggle with feelings of isolation and fear because of who they are. Creating safe spaces within schools is about more than just tolerance. It's about fostering inclusion and acceptance, which sometimes cannot be found at home, as we've been seeing lately. It's about giving students the freedom to express themselves without fear of ridicule or harm. Every child deserves to feel safe enough to learn, grow, and thrive. Now, I understand that some may feel uncomfortable with the idea of discussing gender and sexuality in schools. This discomfort can often lead to strong opposition against inclusive practices. But it's important to recognize that we are not just talking about LGBTQ+ issues, we're talking about humanity, respect, and empathy. We are talking about creating a culture where every student feels like they belong. In conclusion, safe spaces for LGBTQ+ students and all students in school is not a matter of political correctness. It's a matter of life and death. It is about ensuring that every student, no matter their background or identity, feels valued and seen. It is about fighting against the terrifying statistics and supporting our students who struggle with suicidal thoughts and ideation. And it is about building a society where love, respect, and empathy are the cornerstones of our shared humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comment. We are going to go to item 8A, this reports from school-related organizations, Vista Teachers Association.
Good evening, esteemed board members, Superintendent Dr. Doyle, student board members, cabinet, and community members. My name is Carrie Avila, and I am the proud president of Vista Teachers Association, Local 1088. On behalf of VTA, I would like to warmly congratulate and welcome both our new and returning board members to the Vista Unified Board of Trustees. We look forward to working with all of you in the spirit of collaboration to do what is best for our students, educators, and families. As always, VTA stands firmly behind the belief that the working conditions of our educators are the learning environments of our students. One way we have already begun this work of collaboration is through our shared efforts with VUSD to promote culturally responsive teaching and practices. Vista's students and staff come from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds, and we are proud of the progress we have made together. Initiatives like community schools, universal design for learning, and other support systems for BIPOC and LGBTQ+ students and staff are just a few examples of how we are aligning to create a more inclusive and equitable district. This work is not only important, it is essential. The district has taken important steps in its equity work, such as including specific language in policies and reviewing data through the Superintendent's Equity and Anti-Racism Task Force. Efforts like fostering empathy and addressing racial slurs and hate speech are steps in the right direction. Yet, how do we ensure these efforts are actualized and do not remain merely aspirational goals? To move forward, we ask the board to support continued efforts to provide high-quality professional development in culturally responsive practices. Additionally, we must create opportunities to update and develop curriculum, especially as we prepare for upcoming high school ethnic studies graduation requirement. By investing in this work, we can ensure our commitment to equity becomes a reality for every student and educator in Vista Unified. Together, we can make this vision a cornerstone of our schools and community. While we celebrate these achievements, VTA also hopes for a stronger partnership in the bargaining process. We were deeply disappointed to receive the USD's letter attempting to limit the scope of bargaining on critical issues, including Article 18, 7.5-hour contracted workdays and extra events, and Article 30, special education, workloads, and work-life balance. What is most disheartening is that VUSD's approach to bargaining has once again missed an opportunity to work together in a collaborative fashion. Even more concerning is the decision to limit Article 30, which directly impacts our students with disabilities and the educational specialists who serve them. As you see in tonight's board's presentation, or as you will see in tonight's board presentation on the California School Dashboard, our special education students are in the red for English language arts, mathematics, and graduation rates. These sobering results are not just numbers, they are a call to action, underscoring the urgent need for collaboration and meaningful change. Instead of diverting time and resources on letters that limit bargaining, we should be coming together to build systems of support for both our students and educators. By prioritizing true collaboration, we have the power to create real change outcomes that uplift our students, empower our educators, and strengthen our entire community. Together, we can and must do better. As we reflect on the work ahead, VTA remains optimistic that we can build bridges, find solutions, and focus on what truly matters, serving the students and families of Vista Unified. Finally, as we approach this holiday season, VTA would like to wish everyone here a joyful and restful holiday. We honor the rich diversity of our community and its many traditions, finding commonality in the joy, generosity, and hope that this season inspires. Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you, Ms. Avila. And next is our California School Employees Association, Marcela Ramos. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, board members, newly elected board members, student board members. I know last time I was here, we had no student members and I was like, oh, bummer, they didn't get to hear our report. So glad to see that all of you are present. Superintendent, cabinet, and my CSEA siblings of chapter 389. So let me formally introduce myself again, and for those that are new in the board, my name is Marcela Ramos. I currently work as a district interpreter and translator, and I currently also serve as the chapter president for CSEA. I want to start highlighting some of the agenda items that you will be approving and discussing later this evening. The first one is there's an MOU athletic trainer incentive. And then the other is our reopener for 2024-25. And I just want to take a few minutes to highlight two things, major things about that reopener. One of the things, if approved tonight by you all, it would mean that our maintenance and operations and grounds families will receive a stipend for safety footwear. Can you believe it? They don't get a stipend to get safety footwear until this year, or if approved. And then the other one, which is major accomplishment, is that for the first time ever, support staff of Vista Unified School District will get paid pregnancy disability of 4 weeks and 1 week paid a parental leave. That's never happened before, and that's a huge accomplishment. So that's something you'll be voting on later tonight. I do also want to highlight another item, which is the Classified Summer Assistance Program. For those of you that are not familiar with this program, this is a state-funded summer saver assistance program specifically meant to support our classified staff who don't receive a paycheck during the summer. You'll get a presentation, so I'm not going to dig into details about it because you'll learn more about it later tonight. But I do want to state as CSEA chapter president that our members want this. Last school year was the first time, or rather this year, it was the first time it was implemented, rather this school year. So I want to tell you that our members are saying they want it back. There were several members that couldn't participate because they have to have been employed for at least 1 year in Vista Unified. So here are the benefits. You retain employees. This means that employees that are 10 months don't need to be searching for summer jobs during the summer. That means that we can count on them to return next school year. Another benefit, it doesn't force our employees to not use their sick days, vacation days, because they rather hold on to those days so that when the school year ends, they can get a paycheck in the summer. So this way, hopefully our members can feel it's okay to take the time off to take care of myself. And it also in the summers allows them to spend time with their families. Again, because there's no urgency or need to have to get a second job. And so therefore, those are the great benefits that our members would benefit if the classified summer assistance program is approved tonight. So to us, it's a no-brainer, but it's worth mentioning it because thank you, Trustee Morocco, who brought it up to the board and brought it up to classified employees in CSEA. And I only mention this because I hope it reminds the board, or this is us letting you all know. The board takes initiative and say, hey guys, I think this could be beneficial to you all. Let's have a discussion. Does it? Let's collaborate. And this is a perfect example where we say, absolutely, yes, thank you so much. So I encourage you, each one of you to take the initiative and think about how you can support our support staff who ultimately support the students of Vista Unified. We are open to having that dialogue with you. I do want to say thank you. I see that, tonight you'll be voting on board meeting dates for 2025. The board meeting in November is early in the month, and I appreciate that because, as you all know, mid-November is parent-teacher conferences. And I say that because our district interpreters and translators and all the bilingual staff that support us that week are impacted that week. And when we have a board meeting on that same week, we're so limited as to supporting the interpreters that are going to be assisting the board meetings that night. So thank you for proposing an early date in November. And last, to wrap up my report is, CSEA has extended an invitation to come and join us this Thursday for our member celebration, December 19 at the Vista Innovation Center from 4 to 6:30. So check your emails because information was provided to each of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. And before we continue, I would like to let our student board members know that it is 8 o'clock. And you're welcome to stay. We love having you stay. But we understand if you need to go and take care of during finals and study for your finals. And good luck and you and have a wonderful, restful, lovely, peaceful holiday season. Thank you. And now we are gonna have our District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC, come up for their report. Ms. Cruz.
Buenas tardes, estimados miembros de la mesa directiva. Antes de comenzar a leer el reporte y la recomendación de DILAC, me gustaría mencionar que no estoy de acuerdo con el nuevo método de reclasificación y que como presidenta de DILAC no comparto este resultado, pero lo respeto, ya que fue una decisión de 15 escuelas presentes.
Good afternoon, esteemed members of the board. Before I read the report and the recommendations of DLAC, I would like to mention that I am not in agreement with the new reclassification guidelines. And as president of DLAC, I just want to say I don't agree with it, but I respect it because it was a decision made of 15 schools present.
A decir verdad, en lugar de llevarnos métodos para bajar el nivel académico de los aprendientes de inglés, para lograr un objetivo, lo ideal sería que nos presenten programas para que los padres puedan ayudar a sus hijos, también como viajes de conocimiento para los aprendientes de inglés. Es decir, programas y métodos que ayuden a mejorar el nivel académico, no métodos que hacen que se queden en un mismo nivel académico por años.
To be honest, instead of looking for ways to lower the academic level of English language learners, for students to reach the objective, the ideal would be for us to bring programs where parents learn how to help their students, tools and field trips for academic learning for English language students. That is to say, programs that help them better their academic level, not methods that leave them behind at the same academic level for the next years.
Una vez dado mi punto de vista, paso a leer el reporte de DILAC.
Once I've given my point of view, I will give you now the DLAC report.
Actualización de DILAC para la mesa directiva. DILAC realizó una junta oficial el lunes 18 de noviembre y como primer punto se realizó una elección especial para parlamentaria donde resultó elegida la señora Flor Lisbeth Morales de la escuela Greenbank. Como punto número 2, se cumplió el quórum de 18 escuelas de las 22 escuelas representadas. Y como punto número 3, cumplimos la tarea número 5, que es revisar y comentar sobre los procedimientos de reclasificación del distrito escolar.
Our DLAC update for the Vista Unified School Board. DLAC conducted its first official meeting on Monday, November 18th. Our first order of business was a special election for parliamentarian. We elected Flor Lisbeth Morales, who represents Grapevine. Our quorum was met with 18 out of the 22 schools represented. And lastly, we completed task number 5, which was review and comment on the school board district reclassification.
El comité DILA recomienda la opción de utilizar tanto las puntuaciones SBAC como los lexios de las evaluaciones locales. DILA recomienda utilizar norma casi lograda, abro paréntesis, nivel 2 de la prueba estatal de inglés SBAC y el estándar lección casi logrado para las evaluaciones locales. Actualmente, iRead, MAP y CAPTI como criterio 4 de proceso de reclasificación para los aprendientes de inglés. La próxima junta oficial de DILA se llevará a cabo el lunes 27 de enero a las 6 de la tarde en el Centro de Innovación de Vista.
The DLAC committee recommends the option to use both SBAC scores and Lexiles from local assessments. DLAC recommends using the quote standard almost met, which is level 2 of the SBAC English state test, and Lexile standard almost met for local assessments. Currently, iReady, MAP, and CAPTI as criterion 4 of the reclassification process for English language learners. The next official DLAC meeting will be held on Monday, January 27th at 6 p.m. at the Vista Innovation Center.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Okay, and with that, we are ready for 9A, board member report out. I will start with trustee Alvarado.
I'm gonna pass so that we can get the business of the board completed.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Trustee Vargas?
I'll pass as well.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Trustee Markov?
Pass.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Vice President Martin?
Pass.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and I too will pass, thank you. Teamwork, we can do this. Staff committee reports to the board. We're ready for Measure LL Microbond Workshop. I remember this.
Either way, sorry.
We're gonna find out if this works, Brian. So we reverse the polarity so I don't have to hold it, so. All right, President Morocco, Vice President Martin, all the members of the Board of Trustees, thank you very much. We have a brief presentation this evening that we bring to you on Measure LL. First up is we just present our financials each month. The financials have not significantly changed. They are consistent with the ongoing closeout proceedings on several of the projects, some of which will be on the agenda later this evening. So there's no significant changes here. We're still at budget. Looking at additional items, Bovier Elementary School, we just have a few updates for the community that we include in this. We are at a point where we are forming retaining walls, forms, and items. You can see it out at the site if you have time to come by and take a look. These are significant happenings, not the glamorous work of building a building out of the ground, the not so glamorous work that comes back to haunt you if you don't do it right of everything underground. And that is really taking place right now. We do have several items on the agenda this evening. We put them here in the presentation. You vote on them later. First, on the consent, we have two items this evening. The first is for an item that has to do with managing funds. This is the computer program that manages Measure LL funds. We actually use it in two capacities, Measure LL funds. And then again, we use it for Fund 40 and additional facility funds. This allows for us to track funds differently. The Measure LL portion of this carries a cost of roughly $9,540 a year for a total of $28,000 that goes to administrative services. The next item up is for GAFCON. GAFCON administers several services for our district, but in this case for Measure LL, they do all of the compliance reporting regarding labor and making sure that we are doing all of our items correctly. They act like a third-party arbitrator. In this case, this is a no-cost modification. The reason for this modification is that GAFCON is going to help us in this case to close out the projects, to make sure everything is done correctly as we close down each of these projects, whether it be for PLA projects or for prevailing wage projects. We also are at a time where we present this information for, in particular, our new trustees, which is we have a process for closing out a project, and we're in the middle of a few closeouts, one being Vista High School. We have a partial contract that needs to be addressed. The contract, actually, the project was begun closing out last board meeting, but we had the final DSA documents come out, so we have an architecture of record item we need to address. What happens at the end of a project is we know the actual cost of the project. Once you know the actual cost, many of the costs associated, including the inspector of record, architectural fees, all sorts of things, are on percentages of that. So once you have the final one, you have to true up the contracts. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down, depending upon the contract and what was achieved during the contract. So we will be going through all of these. So that is what our closeout process is. In this case, you're going to be seeing a number of items. I want to be sure to pull this up. That's going to be on item 17G, H, I, J, K later on this evening. But you're going to see true up amounts regarding Vista High School and the new classroom for the architect of record. So that's their total fees for all items to be trued up. On the next slide, we have Vista Magnet Middle School. So Vista Magnet Middle School, if you recall, we were going through a number of negotiations to close that project out. All the negotiations have been concluded. So at this time, we have some of these items that are truing up. This includes all sorts of things. Now, keep in mind, when you see in the parens, that's a credit back to the district. That's a good thing. So we have a contingency credit coming back to the district in this particular case on the guaranteed maximum price. We also have a number of other items that are true up items that are listed here, including the architect of record, very similar process. And those will all be on separate items as you go through. An additional item not listed in this presentation is when you approve all of those items, the last item that has to be addressed at the end is the notice of completion of the project. That's finally closes out all items and we can begin that final process. So that is the overview of the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Loescher. Questions, board member questions? Can we start with trustee Vargas?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Markov?
No questions.
Vice President Martin?
I do have a question on the Vista Magnet Middle School final change order. It lists that the change order is capturing all the unforeseen structural, unforeseen utility, rerouted utilities. How could we see another additional $2 million? Am I reading this right? Are we approving an additional $2 million for these unforeseen issues?
You're not actually approving that $2 million. It was previously approved by a Board of Education. These are the credits coming back. There were a number of items on this of underground. There was actually an underground river. There was all sorts of underground things that had to be addressed in the process that could not be foreseen with ground penetrating software and additional items. So we actually came back. We modified the GMP, but we report all items when we do the closeout to notify you that we have made those modifications during the process. So we don't just list the total new amount, we issue all amounts.
So this $2 million additional amendment was made by the previous board, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so we are voting on, it's an action item. What do you action?
The change orders for us to receive $500,000 back.
I understand, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Alvarado, any questions?
With, just to clarify, the Vista Magnet Middle School, that was part of the PLA project, was it not?
Yes.
Yes. And so this came in under the GMP?
This came under the modified GMP, that's
Yes.
accurate.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any second round of questions? Anybody, any new questions from anybody? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Loescher. I have no questions. Thank you.
You can stay up there.
Yeah. Okay, annual board governance training options.
All right, so before Dr. Wilson takes over, every year, the board is required to go through a process of governance training. Typically, that occurs in January. And prior to us going in, because we have some new board members, we wanted to make sure the board had an opportunity to discuss what types of trainings and what organization would like to provide the training. That's the purpose of this slide there. Many options available. Previous boards have engaged in a whole variety of different options. So it's just a discussion, so you can give us direction to plan for the training coming.
Thank you very much. Just a quick background, we have board bylaws that are also known as the governance standards for the district for the policy series set in 9,000. So the board bylaws state that we are to maximize effectiveness of board competence through the district governance systems. So oftentimes we have legal requirements, but we also have different requirements for government or different options for governance training. Legal requirements include ethical training that has to be achieved by a certain date. In looking at the options, there are many local, state, and national service providers of governance trainings that are out there. Listed here are some of those options that you have historically used, some options that are state level and state provided through various organizations, and we'll walk you through those. And then also we've listed some regional national ones. Now for the board budget, I want to be really specific. I got a few questions and I want to make sure that I present the board budget and where we come up with the number 61,230. Because if you look at our budget book, the number is significantly larger. It's actually $250,000. The board did not have a budget of $250,000. The election itself took nearly $60,000 to run. So we have to pay for election services and other items. So I subtracted that out. Then we also have all of the benefits and your salaries. They are not large salaries, clearly, but we have to account for all of those. I removed that from the budgetary list. And what you have listed is all you have left for training, other items, food services, things of that nature is what's left in there, okay?
And just mental note, that's what's in the budget now. That doesn't mean that the board can't change it. We're just simply reporting to you what currently exists.
Correct. So as we look on the slide 3, we broke this out into three specific areas for you. Recently utilized items include the governance core, your use of legal counsel, F3 law, Nicole Anderson and Associates. All of these have been used by the board recently as to services for supporting this. For local state resources, many boards use the California School Boards Association. Either one series is called Governing Basis. All of these are links that you can explore. The other is called Masters in Governance. Some boards consult with local universities and use a university consultant. For example, local universities like USD provide consultancy services on governance, generative governance systems or different options. For regional national, we selected 3 items that are well known in California, used in the Southwest, including the Aspirin Group International. This is a group based out of Colorado. They use what's called a policy-based governance model or a Carver system for governance. They typically consult districts of many different sizes in California. We also listed Dawson and Quinn. This is also a policy-based governance system, very similar to the Carver system. And then finally, another system that is being utilized is the Asbury and Gore system, which is called a balanced policy base, which has to do with structuring different committees different ways for a balanced system sort of that is there, but also from that sort of Carver tradition of policy-based governance at those levels. So we presented those to you for your contemplation.
And at this point, we'll hand it back to the president, so you guys
Okay,
can
thank you.
deliberate and ask questions.
Okay, any questions? We start with trustee Markov. Any questions?
No questions.
Vice President Martin?
Yes, I have a question. The governance core is CSBA, legal counsel F3 law. Is that CSBA also?
So F3 is independent legal counsel.
Independent of CSBA.
And Nicole Anderson?
Independent of CSBA. Both of those organizations have attended the CSBA conference, but they're independent of CSBA.
Yes, okay. And do we see anything in the regional national? Is there one that is better than the other with the elimination of CSBA? I'd rather not do those.
Well, this board and previous boards have utilized the governance core. In the past, we've used F3 law and we've used Nicole Anderson. If we think over the past decade, F3 law has been the typical organization we've used for governance training, which is our legal organization.
Thank you.
Okay, trustee Alvarado, any questions?
Would, the governance training include the required ethics training by the state of California? Would we, have that as a separate entity? Because I think that's 2.5 or 3 hours that are required by a new either state Senate bill or state assembly bill.
Yeah, so I'll let Dr. Loescher answer part of the question. So there's a two-part answer to the question. Ethics will be embedded into your governance training module that you do as a team. There's a second level to that. I'll let Dr. Loescher answer the second level.
So depending upon the system you choose, that would depend on way if you did it. For example, if you were selecting the Aspen Group International, they would not cover your local ethics training because that's a national model. You would want somebody that is within the state to provide that model as legal counsel. So it really depends on the model system you choose.
Do we have prices for, the regional Aspen, Dawson, Owlsbury, and Gore?
So just real quick, before we answer that one, I just wanted to do a tag on to your question about the ethics training. It's a good question. One thing that we would have to vet if you, as soon as you choose an organization, is whether or not that agency has been certified in ethics training. Because in the state of California, you cannot, an organization cannot provide ethics training until they're certified, for which we can find out very easily, but I don't know off the cuff right now. So just know F3 would for sure, we would have to verify the others.
All right, so, prices on the regional and national, please?
Yeah, we have reached out to ask for prices. They have variable prices. They want more specifics on the level before providing price quotes. So we're in the process of getting those, and we'll include them in a Friday letter when they materialize.
But we, so a decision that we would make tonight, we might make it with not the full information needed to know, like if we have to add to what the balance of the board budget being 61,000, we'd have to maybe modify it. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, so let me try that one. If it pleases the board, what would be helpful for us tonight isn't necessarily definitively make a decision, but give us a little bit of direction. We can gather more information and some specificity around certification and also the cost and get it back to you. So if we can narrow it down to one or two, then we can send that to you in a Friday letter so that we can be prepared. That's our thinking at this time. I can use, having been in this position a while, and previously as an assistant superintendent, I can tell you that F3 would probably be your cheapest approach, and any national association would likely be your most expensive.
Okay, so that's my last question. We will have a round of discussion after this. Okay.
Trustee Vargas.
I don't have any questions, but I do have comments, so I'll wait.
Okay, and I just want to clarify, I just want to ask a question to be clarified. Is there, standards? So anybody that we would use to facilitate us, do they have to have specific training in this, or how does that work? Is there a specific licensing or something for this?
So thank you. No, there's not a specific licensing outside of ethics training. For ethics training, you do have to have a certification. That's correct from what our understanding is. For many of these systems, many of the governance models that you're talking about, these are the people that develop systems with districts. So there isn't necessarily a certification for that, a national certification. What you typically go by is the references. You can look at what they have done with other districts. You can refer to that. For example, you can look at a Carver-based system. It will have board superintendent relations. It will have operational expectations. It will have goals for student achievement. It's a pretty uniform process of governance standards. For some organizations, they do get endorsed by a school board association of the state. So in some cases, you may say that some of these are endorsed by a variety, either the Oregon School Boards Association, the California School Boards Association, Nevada, et cetera, all of which may endorse one, but it's not an actual certification, which was your question.
Okay, thank you. And speaking of the ethics training, does my 4 years having a bachelor's degree in ethics and morality, does that count? Does that let me off the hook?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, next, any further questions? Does anybody have any further questions? Vice President Martin, you have a question?
Is this self-run? Are we doing this on our own? Do we do it as a group? Is it?
So normally what happens with the governance training, because there's two elements to it. Remember, there's the governance training and then the separate ethics training. So normally what would happen is you would do it as a team. And it's actually one of our recommendations of the dates that you're going to discuss later this evening One of them would be, and it comes up in January, and it would be called a governance workshop. So step one, you would do that as a board workshop. I'll use F3 as an example because we brought them up as a possibility. They have provided the majority of the governance training over the past 10 years or so. They would typically meet with you during a workshop and then meet individually with board members to follow up on some details around confidentiality, conflicts of interest, and things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, with that, we will go to just, a comment, and I believe trustee Vargas, you had a comment, so I'm gonna go circle to you first.
Yeah, no, I definitely recommend, we choose, one of the options before us and, we have used many of them and there's benefits to, each one. I'll speak, two that I think, would be beneficial at this point in time. F3, that's our lawyers for the district, and so they have institutional knowledge, of this district and, some of the challenges and, things that we have reached out, from year to year. But also to Anderson, she leads our equity work, and with that, is talking to our principals, connecting with our teachers, and so there's a benefit, to those, but I'm like, one or the other, let's make sure, we, I would recommend at least two. And then the last one I'll make is, making sure that, we get to an agreement on governance handbook. I think that's gonna be critical as we move forward, making sure that there's common agreement among the board and making sure that we have, clear expectations, of how we govern as a board, so that we can effectively serve our students.
Thank you. Anybody else have comments?
I want to comment that I would be in favor of anyone as long as we have full board participation. And if there's gotta be dialogue so we can synergize in order to get the best outcomes for our kids. And if there's something that in our governance training that not the majority of the board, or that you have an issue about, that you have concerns about, that you bring forth edits, modifications, suggestions, so that we can work on the same, what is the expression? We can just be working collectively for the best outcomes for our students. Our students deserve it. So I'm not gonna favor one over the other, but I will favor one where every trustee participates in a way that is productive and professional.
Thank you. I do have one more question. Is there a timeline on this?
Typically, they would like, the new board, in particular for new board members to participate within the first 60 days. That's why we scheduled in January. I can't remember a time that we have not had it in January. And that's just to kick off the year. I do need to make a clarification so the board, in particular, our newer trustees are aware. When we are talking about governance training and the governance workshop that we're proposing in January, that would be for the training in governance. Trustee Vargas brought up something very important, which is the governance handbook. We likely would not be able to accomplish both in one sitting. That typically takes multiple discussion points over a number of months. I just want to, and we can talk about a variety of approaches to doing that. But for the purpose of this conversation, we're asking for direction on using an organization to prepare for your governance training in January. And during that training, we can have an in-depth conversation about how you would like to go about making adjustments to the governance handbook.
Thank you. I have one more. Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
Trustee Martin, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to make a suggestion that we use F3 law.
Okay, do we need a motion for this or?
No, this is not an action item, but I would like to get consensus so that we're moving in the right direction.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, I'm okay with F3 law. I kind of would like to have, well, I'm in favor, I'm fine with F3 law. So.
President Morocco, normally what we do, once we get consensus, is actually the president works with me and after that to create the training.
Okay.
So you'll be part of the process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so thumbs up on F3 law?
All right.
Okay,
Thank you
we have
very much.
consensus, thank you. And next is 10C, our California School Dashboard.
All right, Steve, come on up. So as Steve is coming up, This is the second installment of our report on student achievement. The previous meeting, you saw Steve up here talking about our annual assessments that students take. This is the second component that he's going to walk you through for our new trustees. Ms. Martin understands this, but we bring these presentations to you when we have the data available to us. So we can't always, we have to do it when we get the data in. Sometimes the state gives us the data on time, sometimes the state does not. We happen to have got that on time, so we're presenting it to you in December. Steve, thank you so much for your hard work on this. Take it away.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, members of the Board of Trustees. I'm Steve Post. I'm the Coordinator of Measurement and Monitoring. And as we just heard, this is a presentation on our California dashboard, building on the presentation we looked at last time for the CASP scores. And this somewhat detailed presentation that I'll go through fairly quickly is in complement to a more community-friendly version that we are putting out in our next community update, which you also got in your Friday letter. That's our Data Insights Report, issue number 4. So the California School Dashboard for 2024 was just released a few weeks ago. And this is a nice broad look at many measures of our schools for our district that looks at multiple measures of student performance to get a more complete picture, more than just test scores. It has many indicators that impact student performance. This is available for the district and for each individual school. And I'll talk about the district overall. So the dashboard includes many indicators, some of which are we call the state indicators that start with academics, of course, and then they look at other measures like absenteeism, college and career preparation, English learner progress, graduation rate, suspension rate, and the new indicator on science. And then there are local indicators, which are more from the LCFF and LCAP process, things that we give information to the state. And these are showing that we are hitting these state priorities. So the dashboard is a nice visual display that shows how we perform on these measures with a color display. Excuse me. And the color display from red, orange, yellow, green to blue, blue being at the higher level, red at the lower, is actually a really cool process that values growth and progress just as much as the status. I really appreciate this, that we look at not just where we are as a district, but the growth and progress that we're making, and those are equally as important. If you look at this chart here, you can see that on the left-hand side is the level at which we are at a certain indicator, and on the top of it is a change from the prior year. So it's important to look at the growth of the district. Both of those indicators correlate to find out our current level. So just one more note about the indicators before we get into some details. The academic indicators, which are specifically talking about mathematics and English language arts, will give you data that's reported in distance from standard. And that indicates the distance of a student's score or average of scores from the standard level for proficiency, which the CASP levels describe as the highest being standard exceeded, then standard met. Those two at the top are what we are indicating as proficient, or the standard that we're trying to achieve. And then there's standard nearly met and standard not met. So if a student's score were below that, we would look at the points to get to the minimum for the bottom of the level 3 for proficiency. That distance from that level 3 is what we call distance from standard. The other state indicators look at percentages of students who meet and criteria in each category. All right, and one more important part about the dashboard is that it looks at the student groups. There are 14 student groups, and each indicator shows an equity report, which is a great way to look at the performance of student groups to see how they are performing, not just looking at the whole, but making sure that we are looking at all of our student groups. And you can see there's 14 groups, and the newest one for this year is our long-term English learners. That's brand new on the dashboard this year. All right, so here it is. Here is the Vista Unified overall school dashboard for 2024. And you can see that we have the indicators for the state measures in their color markers. And then the local measures are all towards the bottom there, and they are all marked as standard met. So you can see that some of our indicators are in the orange categories. Those are the English language arts and mathematics. Some are in the yellow, that's our English learner progress, graduation rate, and chronic absenteeism. And some are in the green, and that's the suspension rate and the college and career preparation indicator. So I'm going to dive into each one to give you a bit more detail to show you how we got to our current spot. So the first indicator is English language arts, and you can see on this display, we're looking at Vista Unified in the 2023 dashboard and the 2024 dashboard and noting the change. As I shared, it's important to look for that progress or that change. So English language arts, we've been at orange for the past 2 years on the dashboard, and the change category is marked as maintained. So overall, you can increase, you can maintain, or you can decline. And so that is the maintain category for English language arts. That's definitely a focal area for us to improve our academic performance. Mathematics, we can see in 2023 was in the yellow category and in 24 in the orange category. But I would like to point out an interesting factor here. We actually did increase, as you can see on the right side of the sort of the purple box. While the category is marked as maintained, we did move up by 2.9 points to get closer to that standard. So here's where the intricacy comes in. So in 2023, we got to that yellow category because there was an increase there of 3.2 points from the previous year, which qualified as increased and bumped us up to yellow. Versus in 24, the increase was only 2.9 points, and that kept us in the maintain category. The cutoff for getting to that increased category is 3.0 points, so we missed it by 1/10 of a point. So very close. So we will look for that continued growth. And so the note here is mathematics is an area for improvement as well, but we have seen the progress over the years. All right, a few more important indicators, and another one to celebrate growth is our college and career preparation indicator. You can see here in 24, we are in the green category, and that's largely due to a big increase in the number of students who are graduating high school with that college and career preparation. So this is an indicator that can be met in a number of ways. Students who perform well on their SBAC scores, who perform well on multiple AP or IB scores, who complete CTE pathways. We've had a lot of increase in our CTE pathways. Students who get the state seal of biliteracy, students who are achieving on a variety that I'm blanking on at the moment, but there's about 6 categories. It's a complex set, but we have increased in a large number there, and so that's a celebration point. The English learner progress indicator is below that, and that's actually gone up to yellow in this case. The reason why that one's in yellow, while you see that we're at that maintain category, is because the previous year, 23 compared to 22, there was a small decrease, and we got that decrease, and so that knocked us down to orange. So you can see that variability from year to year, and it really does matter to look at that growth over time. All right, then we move on to academic engagement, and here we have some growth in both of these indicators. While we are in yellow to yellow from one year to the next in both, you can see that we did decrease the number of students who were chronically absent. We want to decrease in this category, and we had a significant decrease. We went down by 8.9%. And so you might think, well, maybe that would qualify us to bump up to that green level. Chronic absenteeism still is at a high category, a high level, and that's across the state. We're not the only ones, of course. We're seeing that across the state. To get into that green, to have that category, we actually have to be overall below 10% of our students qualifying as chronically absent. So that's one where we'll have to make a little more progress in order to get to that green. And then our graduation rate did jump up a little bit as well, increased by almost 1 percentage point. Suspension rate. We had a nice decline in suspension rate. Of course, we want to decline there as well. And we did move into the green there, where we have declined by 1.4% for our suspension among our students. And then the science indicator at the bottom is actually informational only. This is brand new this year, and so there's no color indicator for science for any school or district. So we expect to see a color next year. So here's a great indicator to look at our district versus the state of California to see the averages overall. So in the middle, you can see Vista Unified and the categories that we landed in and the state of California. And you can compare and see that we are at or above the achievement of the state of California as a whole. You can see that our English language arts and mathematics are similar. Chronic absenteeism is both in the yellow, however, we have a lower rate of chronic absenteeism. Our college and career is in the green while the state's in the yellow. Our English learner progress is in the yellow and the state is in the orange. Graduation rate is about the same, both in yellow, and suspension rate is about the same, both in green. So we're getting back to where we were pre-pandemic. Vista Unified was historically better than state averages and then post-pandemic, we had a, tough period recovering, building back systems, getting our students back in school. And we are now back to that above the average for the state, and we will continue to make progress. So this is absolutely something to celebrate. All right, so the following.
Just for a moment, are we going too fast or you guys good?
Thank you. I've rehearsed many times. The next few slides go into the indicators themselves to give a little further detail. So English language arts is shown here. It's shown where we are in the maintain category. The most important part about these slides are the equity reports on the right side. Those charts on the right, you can see there where you have the student groups. You can see where they fall into those categories for their performance on English language arts. So this is an area for our schools to dig into to see where we can improve for our student groups and which groups are focal for intervention and support. Mathematics, once again, you can see that we have room to grow, and we are going to look at our student performance for a number of groups who are in those orange and red categories specifically, but we have a larger spread of groups of students across all the color categories. Chronic absenteeism. So here we have chronic absenteeism in the yellow category. We've had a significant decline year over year. And you can see that the majority of our student groups are in the yellow and green categories. So that's where we've made a big progress jump. That's something to note that we want to continue and when we want to get even fewer students in those oranges and the reds. College and career, like I said, a great jump here as well. 6.4% more students prepared for success after graduation. No student groups in the red here, and you can see a nice spread of students across the categories. And this is another area where we'll continue to expand our supports for our students with increases in, our SBAC scores and our performance on standardized tests. We'll see more students being prepared.
Steve, give me just a little bit of info on the gray.
Yes, oh, thank you. The gray category, no performance color is assigned for small student groups. And so these are small student groups because remember, this is only for our graduating class, our 12th graders. So you can see that some of the student groups are not indicated simply because there's less than 30 students. And that's simply for privacy reasons. English learner progress. All right, so this is another area for us to grow, and we can see that our long-term English learners, that new student group, we can see where they show up here in the orange category, and overall English learners, in the yellow category.
Can you let us know what the long-term English?
Yes, thank you. So long-term English learners, in this case, are students who've been qualified as English learners for 7 years or more, and they've been in our schools for 7 years or more, and they have not yet reclassified.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. All right, graduation rate. We had a little increase there, and you can see that we have students spread across these categories. Many student groups in the yellow and green, but still room to grow, of course, for any category in the red or orange. And our suspension rate, we have reduced our suspensions overall, no student groups in the red category. And you can see that the vast majority of our student groups are in the green category right there. So we hope to continue this trend. Science, once again, is not given an indicator for color for this performance for this year. All right, a bit about local indicators. These are areas that are indicated as priorities through the LCFF and LCAP process. Looking at these indicators, and we report information to the state to show how we are meeting these priority areas. And there's a description there of these priority areas, and you can see that there are things that we're familiar with through our LCFF process. Thank you. You read my mind. Proud to say that our local indicators are all standard met, and they have always been standard met in Vista Unified every year that the dashboard has asked us to report on these ever since 2017. So we have done well in this category as well.
Can I ask a question? Is that self-reported?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, one more category, topic to look into, that the dashboard helps us to understand, is our statewide system of support. All schools in the state of California, are given one of these 4 tiers for support, from the state. And you can see that, the 4 tiers start at the County Office of Education support as needed, lower levels of support, all the way to higher levels of state interventions, which are intense, levels of support. School districts qualify for their level of support based on the student group outcomes. So if a student group is not meeting expectations in multiple categories, that will qualify a district for additional levels of support. Overall, this is known as differentiated assistance. So this chart here shows where Vista Unified is for differentiated assistance based on the performance of our student groups. So you can see that if a student group does not meet expectations in 2 or more of the LCFF state priority areas, then it would qualify a school district for differentiated assistance. On the 24 dashboard, only 1 student group in Vista Unified met that criteria. That was our students with disabilities. So clearly that's a focal area. And this will be something that will qualify us for tier 2 differentiated assistance, which is a 2-year cycle. So we will have that level for the next 2 years. That's the same level that we've had in the previous cycle. So we will continue to have that support from the County Office of Education in tier 2. In this chart, you can see the colored chart shows the performance of our student groups over the past few years, 22, 23, and 24. And what's really a good indicator here is to note that in 22, we had 5 student groups that met criteria in 2 or more areas to qualify for differentiated assistance. In 23, we had 3 student groups, and in 24, only 1. So we have removed almost all of our student groups from the qualification for differentiated assistance, which means that we are moving our student groups up. We have fewer students who are in those red categories, and we have seen some growth. This is an equity success for our students. You can see the charts there show the different category areas in which student groups qualify for differentiated assistance. And you can see on the right side of each one noted in 2024, only the 1 category for students with disabilities. There's lots more information in the dashboard, as well as on the dashboard communication toolkit. It's a public website. And I encourage you to go check it out to see and learn more about the indicators and learn how we move from one to the next, as well as looking at school level reports, as each school gets their own report based on their performance from the past year.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go with questions. I think I started with trustee Markov, so I'm gonna start with trustee Martin. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, trustee Alvarado?
Is there a way we can get a historical report on the percentage of long-term English language learners going back pre-pandemic, so we can see both the number of students and the percentage, because I think we have more kids qualifying for IEPs. I'm not quite sure, but that would give us kind of like a historical overview on how we're doing. And I know that horrible thing happened with pandemic, but even pre-pandemic, maybe going back to 2018 perhaps. And then because those, I'm really concerned with kids that are dually identified. So we don't know what we don't know. We could report on a Friday letter perhaps. And we can get more information on that and then see what else we can do to address students with disabilities and long-term English language learners. Yeah, that's what I would request, because I know you probably don't know that off the top of your head.
Yeah, we typically develop that report every year, so we'll get on that, so you can have it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, trustee Alvarado?
No.
Okay, trustee Vargas?
Yep, two questions. The first one is chronic absenteeism looks phenomenal, and I was just at CSBA, and people are asking, what are we doing? And so maybe this is a question for Dr. Doe, or maybe Nereida, Rachel wants to talk about it.
Yeah, so there's, and I think it would probably be better for, Dr. McKeon to come up or Dr. Faust to come up. And again, we can give you a more detailed answer in a Friday letter, but we're more than happy to come it right now. Let me start, and then we'll have Dr. McKeon and Dr. Faust if they choose to do it, because it's in their department. So there's two areas of absenteeism that we've been focusing on with kind of laser focus across all of our sites. The first one is just general attendance. And our general attendance rate has increased dramatically. In any of these reports, is actually one of the greatest achievements we've had. We averaged nearly 95% in attendance, really, really good. Typically, districts would not want to go above 96. That was our goal. And the reason we don't want to go above 96 is because oftentimes then students would be coming to school sick. And we don't want 100% attendance, because then they're going to get everyone else sick. So, and by the way, we actually were contacted by Sacramento because of our general increase in attendance rates, which is excellent. So shout out to all of the schools, parents, and everyone who had a lot of, put a lot of effort into attendance. A subcomponent of that is chronic absenteeism. So we focused on attendance in general, but I'll have Dr. McCann talk a little bit more about a subcomponent of that, which is chronic absenteeism.
Thank you. It's nice to see all of you this evening. We don't want our students to be chronic. That means that they've been missing quite a bit of school, over 10 days. So we've really beefed up our systems on what it looks like. Part of the thing that we're doing is a new SST process, where we're really working with the families and the teachers when we see that students are missing school. Because as you know, when they miss school, their academics begin to go down. So we've got a new system that we've been putting in place and doing all the training on that, because one of the things that's also going to do is we're not going to identify as many students for special education, because we're catching things early that we can do early interventions on. Under the work of Rhonda Marriott Spencer with our PBIS and so many of the great programs that we've had, it's been exciting to see how our administrators are getting excited and celebrating students coming to school. So I think students are starting to feel good, because mentally, physically, academically, they want to be at school because they feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, one of the, I think, areas of success that Dr. McKeon and her team and all the team members at the school sites have been is focused in on mental health. Many of our students who are chronically absent there's something going on at home or in their life somewhere that they're struggling with. And so having counselors, having social workers, having liaisons that can follow up and support them addresses their mental health needs before it becomes so problematic that they don't want to come to school anymore. So I would say mental health, our social emotional system of support, is probably the greatest area of focus for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yep. Second question is on college and careers. So I do see here it's in green, which is, positive. Just this week, Governor Gavin Newsom released a framework for our career technical education. So a request to our team, whatever we can do to connect. I know 8 years ago when I first went, I was focused heavily on, college, and college is good. I recommend that to any of our students, but there's other pathways, to getting into the middle class and earning good wages. And so on this one, once again, a request to, explore what opportunities are there at the state level that we can, tap into. And I know we're already doing some of that. Hopefully, next year this is at blue.
And we're super excited. Steve's next assignment, he's already been working on it. Why don't you tell him what your next assignment is? It's a great topic.
Yeah, January Data Insights Report on CTE pathways, and looking at how students are earning college credit, completing pathways, internships. So that's my next report that is currently in the works.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I'm just wondering if we could include our student board members in this discussion as well.
I would love to do that, yes. Do you have any questions?
Not to put you on the spot, but your voice is very valuable as a student and currently in the system. You have a lot of knowledge of lived experiences of your peers, so it's, you know, you don't have to say anything, but I'd like the opportunity for our student trustees to also chime in.
Well, I don't know if this works. With the chronic absentee stuff, I know, with what you said, that you have programs and stuff that teachers and other faculty and staff work with. Not only in my school, but like in other schools that I hear in our district too, that there seems not to be a lot of communication between parents and teachers and staff with building up the attendance. So I just wonder how do they interact with each other in order to see this much of an increase?
So repeat your question for me again. You gave me a lot of information. So you're asking me.
So like, what's the interaction between the parents and staff that?
Gotcha.
It's causing the increase.
And for people that couldn't hear, because, what was the cost for the increase? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
What we've been doing is really looking at how do we make sure parents know the importance of having their students in school. So we work with Dr. Doyle in our community update to make sure messaging is going out and we're celebrating the successes as those numbers keep going up. We continue to work with our administrators, our principals and assistant principals, that way they're taking that message to their staff meetings and talking with the teachers about that importance. One thing that comes to mind is one of our schools, they have an attend dance, not attendance, and they celebrate any student that's been there all week long gets to celebrate with a dance on Friday afternoons. So kids want to be in school, but we do want to be mindful, like Dr. Doyle was saying, that if they're sick, we don't want them to come because then they get other children sick and we're going to see that dip down. But the fact that kids want to come has really been very special.
One of the things this excellent question, by the way,
Mhm.
thank you. One of the things that we're really focusing on, we believe in, is the parent-teacher association. So our parents who are very involved in their child's education in school. And we have grown that since the pandemic. So the pandemic had a dramatic impact on the participation in PTA. I think we could all understand why. And we just had our annual gathering sponsored by the PTA, and it was standing room only. So we have very valuable relationships with them. We do it in English and in Spanish, so we meet people where they are. And then we have a very large team of family liaisons. Liaisons are at each of our schools, and they meet parents in the parking lot. Every parent's a little different. So we try to meet parents where they are and engage them in meaningful conversation. Sometimes it's informal, and sometimes it's formal.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Doyle.
And if you have suggestions, I'd be lovely to talk with you afterwards and see if you have some ideas on other ways that we can work with staff and families. So please see me at the end, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Gia. That was a good question. And thank you to my fellow trustees for the interruption. Trustee Markov, do you have any questions? No, it wasn't an interruption. We just went out of turn.
So I don't know if this is an appropriate time to ask this question, but is there any way to, and it doesn't have to be answered right now, but I'd like to know the names of the different programs we use to develop curriculum for reading, for English or Spanish, or for math and things like that. And just so that I can do my own research on where they come from and how that's used in the classroom.
Thank you. Trustee Martin, any other questions? Anybody else? Any other questions?
I have one more question.
Sure.
On the suspension expulsion rates, a couple of years ago, there was a significant number of African-American students that, were suspended. And so just want to get the pulse of what's happening now and what we've done to try and make sure that, they're not disproportionately suspended in the district.
So we can get that information for you. I don't want to guess at this point, but we can absolutely give that to you in a Friday letter. We can compare it to previous years.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Trustee Vargas, if I'm right, I believe that on the dashboard, it shows that there was growth in a positive direction for the African American. So that's good. Okay, so my question. I noticed that our most significant growth was in our socioeconomically disadvantaged. That seemed to be across the board. We saw growth. do we know what's accounting for that? That might be a Dr. Doyle question.
Well, I mean, we have a number of team members here. I can tell you that the most important impact on students who are, so socioeconomic is defined as students who are at or below the poverty line. That's the definition of socioeconomic. And we have students across all ethnicities that are below the poverty line. Our average in this district is 65%. So 65% of our students are at or below the poverty line. We believe that is probably a little bit higher because parents have to disclose that information. So there's probably a group of parents who are not, we're probably closer to 70. Some of our schools are over 90%, and some of our schools are at 30%. It's just important to understand the landscape of the school district. It's not every school 65. And I would say that the most important impact on their growth over time is social, emotional, and behavioral.
Okay.
Before academic.
Thank you. And then one more comment actually I have is, the mathematics scores, of course, we were celebrating those, but one thing that is a little bit of a standout to me that I'm not, kind of a red flag, no pun intended, is that the majority of that growth seems to have come from the usual suspects, the Pacific Islanders, Filipino, two or more races, white and Asian. So these tend to be I've noticed since I've been examining that dashboard, these are consistently the higher achieving groups. So, that is something that I just wanna, I don't really have a question, it's just that it's something to be aware of, that we want to make sure that these other groups that maybe are not achieving as much get the same. We've got to find out what makes them tick. So I wanted to point that out to my colleagues. Okay, and with that, are there any more, Gia, do you have any more questions or comments? No? Okay, our student board trustee, any more of my colleagues, any more questions or comments? Awesome, thank you, we will move on, thank you. Mr. Post?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Post.
thank you.
With that, we are gonna move on to the consent calendar. Okay, at this point, does anybody have anything that they would like to hold from the consent calendar? Vice President Martin, you would like, what would you like to hold? And I have a couple things too.
I'd like to pull 15D
Okay,
and also 16A.
okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay, those were the ones I wanted to pull too. Anybody else have any other items they would like pulled off consent? Okay, going once, that's okay, seeing nobody else, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar minus items 15D and 16A. Do I have anybody to move that?
Second.
No. You say so moved.
So moved.
Okay, moved by trustee Markup. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President Martin. Okay. And with that, I will call, any discussion? Anybody have any discussion? Okay, with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? With that, the consent calendar passes unanimously. I vote, thank you. All right, now let's go to item 15D. I will allow trustee Martin. Do you have?
Yes.
Okay, I will allow you to speak to it.
15D has multiple items, so I'm concerned about item number 3 and item number 20. Both are travel to Washington DC for our administrators with regard to workforce housing. I think this is an unnecessary expenditure.
Point of order, there's a correction there. Workforce housing is number 3, and that's in California. Okay, the one to Washington DC, because I pulled the same ones. Sorry. It's to Washington DC for something else. So why don't you speak to number 3 first?
Make sure.
I can pull up on the screen if you want. You good?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Number 3 is, the out of district travel for two, board members and also 2 administrators for $11,500 with regard to workforce housing. I think this is a cost, and as we're trying to cut back on costs, and as I remember about 6 months ago, we had decided to cut back on travel. And I believe it was trustee Vargas who proposed a $12,000 travel limit. But yet I'm seeing more and more travel again. So I don't find this to be a necessary expense.
Thank you. Anybody want to comment on that?
Right, we, were accepted to work with the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, UC Berkeley and UCLA to explore workforce housing, as recommended by the Long Range Facilities Master Plan. So with the exploration, we have part of it being paid by the foundation, is
Yes,
that correct?
correct.
And as far as the other funding, it's developer funding, that's not general fund. That's a whole different pot of funding. So anyhow, it's a great opportunity to look into possibilities for funding for a high need necessity for our employees who many can't even afford to live in the community that they work in. And it's a great opportunity to see how other cities and other districts have collaborated to recruit employees and retain employees in their district. And clarify, please, who's paying for what besides the developer fees?
So the district would just be paying for travel. The Chan Zuckerberg in partnership with Berkeley and UCLA are paying for the activities and the conference. This is, I believe, 3 different occasions, not one.
So the 11,500 is for the travel, is that correct? Okay. Anybody else want to speak to this?
Currently, as we speak, San Francisco this month is opening up 330 units for workforce housing. San Diego was just highlighted about to open up 1,000, and so these are opportunities that are gonna pop up across the state. We can be a part of them, or we can miss out on opportunities, and this is one area. And it doesn't have to be me or even Martha, I would encourage all of our board members to attend if time permits. We get to learn about, this critical issue, how we can meet the needs of our staff. And it doesn't have to be even teachers, it can be psychologists, social workers. And so there's more to come on that, but this is a critical issue that's coming in the pipeline.
Thank you for that, trustee Vargas, because I actually had a concern about why it was you two going and it was not open up to the rest of us. So thank you for clarifying that. My concern about this is that we have not identified any property for workforce housing just yet. And I think this is sort of putting the cart before the horse a little bit. So I am going to be a no on this. So, with that said, I think there was another item of concern that, Vice President Martin had. But is there any other questions or comments about this?
For item number 3.
For item number 3 on 15D? No? Okay, then you had, another item, was that item number 20? Okay, go ahead. Do you want to speak?
Just real quick, just so we understand, because you have 2 different items, would you like to do individual votes on each item? Or do you want to, it might be more clear for the notes?
Yeah. Okay, so then we would do I would say if, trustee Martin, are you okay with everything else except for those two items that you are questioning?
On 15D, I'm fine with everything except for 3 and 20.
Okay, good, I am too. So I will, if it's okay with my colleagues, I will entertain a motion to approve everything else but those 2 items, and then we can vote on those separately. Okay, so does anyone want to make the motion to approve item 15D except for item?
We did that.
No, we voted on the consent calendar minus 15D and 16A. So now we need to approve item 15D.
With revisions.
with the revisions. Should we do the revisions first and
No,
then?
you're right on track. Keep
Okay.
going. You're right on
So
track.
let's go ahead and, I will entertain a motion to approve item 15D minus items 3 and 20 for the time being. Is that, yeah, 3 and 20 for the time being. Does anyone want to make the motion?
So motion.
Okay, so, motion by trustee Martin, seconded by trustee Markov. Thank you. So any questions, comments?
Yep, I'd like to speak to item 2020 is
No,
our.
no, no, no. We're just approving 15D minus items 3 and 20.
This is discussion, so can I discuss?
Well, we're gonna vote on those separately, so you can discuss the number 20. Yeah, we're gonna vote on that separately. So we'll have a separate discussion for that.
Got it, but I'd like to discuss it right now. If I may?
Well, there's a motion and a second on the floor. We need to vote on the motion and the second.
After discussion.
After discussion. Okay, yeah, for 15D. Okay,
Correct.
go for it.
Yeah, number 20th is our legislative visit with CSBA and AXA. And so this is an
Okay, I'm gonna
opportunity.
interrupt you there. That is not what we are voting on. The motion on the floor is minus number 20. 15D minus number 20.
But this was just removed, so I'm speaking to that.
But we are not there yet. Right now, we're just approving 15D minus 3 and minus 20. We will have a separate motion and a vote for those. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, all right. So do you have anything to speak to, anything on 15D, the approval or the disapproval of it?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm seeing no other objections. I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor of approving item 15D minus items 3 and 20, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we will talk about item number,
I'll make a motion to approve 15 with numbers items 3 and 20
say item 15D, item 3
and 20.
and 20. Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, anybody want to talk to that?
Yep, as maker of the motion, I'll start off. So I just spoke about 3. Number 20, this is our annual advocacy trip with AXA. And with board members across the state of California participate. One thing that I have noticed is that, when engaging our state and federal elected officials, in this case, our federal elected officials, is that if we're not part of that legislative process, then, you have other people speaking to the issues of public education or even other topics. And so for me, as we head into a new administration, I think there's a great opportunity to continue the advocacy. And as we've seen in the past, bring some of the funding back to our district.
And that was for item 3. Do you have anything to say on item 20? Oh, that was item 20? Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
regarding item 3, this is a great opportunity for our employees, including our classified support staff, our hard to fill positions. And I'm thinking specifically special education. I'm thinking paraprofessionals who work in special ed, speech pathologists. This has been proven to retain employees, and we can either be forward thinking and be proactive and look at what possibilities we have for funding, or we can sit back and let some other district take advantage of what might be out there, either via the state, via the county, or with, working with nonprofits, because sometimes the workforce housing is managed or created with nonprofits. I believe MAC has one in Chula Vista. I could be wrong, but it's also nonprofits. And I just want to be on the forefront of finding solutions for our staff to have affordable housing and moderate housing as well, because many don't qualify for low-income housing, especially new teachers who are paying off college debt. So I just want us to think big picture, especially when it comes to employee retention.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this?
Yes, I can appreciate that, and I do believe that it does help in certain ways. However, it does not help all of our employees. What helps all of our employees is paying them a living wage. Workforce housing might help 10% of our employees, maybe 5% if we have to split it with city, fire, police. I have no idea what this is gonna look like. I have seen no plan on workforce housing. in Vista Unified. But what I do know is that higher wages will retain our teachers and our classified. That's the answer. If you really want to retain, and if you really want to bring in the best employees, pay them a living wage instead of some, this is a flash in the pan. It will help some, but it's not gonna help all, and it's not gonna retain them all. And what happens if they lose their job? Do they lose their housing too? There's too many open-ended questions, and the answer is pay them a living wage.
Thank you, trustee Martin. Trustee Marco, any comments?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, so, first of all, I want to speak to the motion itself of both of these. I don't think that this, I think there's a lot of confusion here because we have one trustee speaking on one item, another trustee speaking, two other trustees speaking on two other items. So I think that that's kind of confusing. In terms of this traveling for workforce housing, I think that there's other ways that we can, I don't see why we need to go see anything. We live in the modern age with, satellites and cameras and everything that we can probably take a look at that. We can talk to the people. I think that going virtually might be maybe at this point when we don't have any concrete plans in place to proceed with workforce housing. So for me, it's not that I'm opposed to workforce housing. I do think that there's a value to it. We have two new board members that maybe don't understand how the different ways, and I remember we had a really great workshop not too long ago. Maybe we want to revisit doing that before we send trustees off to go traveling all over the state of California to see this. So that would be one thought. The other thought, Washington DC, we have a new administration coming in. They are proposing there's a talk of getting rid of the Department of Education. I kind of think that that's another issue of putting the cart before the horse, going to Washington DC, when we don't know where the policies are gonna be. Let's wait till the new administration comes in and we see what the federal policies are, and then we revisit. So on both of these, I am going to be a no. All right, any other comments or discussion?
This will be detrimental to our employees, and even if it's just 5 or 10%, this can really help people pay off their debt and save for housing, whether it be a down payment. And I think we're just gonna be on the losing end. Another district's gonna take initiative and be part of this cohort of observing and learning. And we're just gonna be on the outside looking in, and it's gonna be a loss for our employees.
And I can appreciate that, and I understand that, but what about the other 80% of our employees? That's the part that I'm worried about. This is not equitable amongst our employees. How are they going to be chosen? We don't even have any, there's no discussion of workforce housing happening in this district so far. So to spend $20,000 for the California travel and for the Washington DC travel, it's not time to do that. And we're supposed to be cutting back. So why the rush? Let's wait.
They're different funding sources.
And I think that we should, but nevertheless, if we're gonna have to be making deep cuts to programs that are gonna implement, that are going to affect our staff and our students, maybe we should start by exemplifying that and, making cuts to ourselves too. So, with that, if there's any further questions or discussion? Okay, for that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of approving, items 15D3 and 20, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Nay. So, that motion fails. 2 to 3, 2, 4, and 3 against. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then there was the other item was 16A.
16A.
Yes. Okay, was there?
Yeah. Yes, I have a few questions on 16A. Item number 14. Item number 35, 36, and 37.
Okay, are there questions?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with item number 14.
With item number 14, I'm wondering why we are needing more training on this particular issue.
We want
Project Live.
Is it okay if I answer?
I don't think we're prepared to give you that because we don't, one of our staff members is in charge of it isn't here.
Okay,
So we can just pull that item and bring it back.
that'd be great.
But again, I don't want to give you the wrong information. I don't want to put the board on, our staff on the spot for that.
No, I'll accept that. We can bring that back next month.
Is there a time, is this time sensitive? I believe this is time sensitive.
Number 14.
Yes. Yes.
I honestly, I don't want to say one thing or the other because I don't know enough specificity about the time sensitivity of it. I know that it's part of the work we've been doing as a school board. I know that we've been focusing on GLAD across the district, but I don't know the time sensitivity of it. I wish I could tell you.
Yeah, I believe the workshop is taking place in either January or February. That's why I think it's time sensitive.
And we have multiple workshops. We have workshops almost every month.
My point is that there's been a lot of GLAD training and I'm just wondering why we need to do additional training for $46,000.
This is for district trainers.
I do understand that.
So it's,
So I think at this point, it would be better for us just to hold and get you that information in a Friday letter.
With regard to the Friday letter, point of order, any questions that I'm asking from the dais to the public, I would like the public to be able to see the answers. So can these Friday letters be addendums to board meeting minutes?
That's confidential.
I'm asking a question in public and they're going to respond. If they had the information, they would have responded to me. It's not confidential.
Yeah, so what we could do is we wouldn't put it in the Friday confidential. I think trustee Alvarado is referring to that.
Absolutely.
We can either put it in a community update, which would be public, or we can bring it as a quick presentation in the next board meeting.
I would prefer if it's on the website where the board meeting agendas are and you can put it as responses to questions from board members.
might I suggest a going community update?
Yeah, at this point, that would probably be something that we would need to agendize and talk through, because that would be a new procedure and we'd have to think through how to make that work.
Okay.
Typically, when there are questions that we don't have we have answers for you, but I want the answer to be exact. Sometimes it's better to pause. We would get that back to you in a Friday letter and we can easily put it either in a community update or some other form so the public has access. I think your point is you want the public to have access to it.
Absolutely. I believe that if we're going to be transparent, any question that is asked in public should be answered in public, even if it's in writing. So I'd like to see that.
Thank you. And then you had 34, 35.
And 35.
Was it just 34, 35, or was it 36? Okay. So, did you want to speak to that?
Yes.
Oh, so 30, 35.
These cost increases, the funding source, are these being paid out of the LL bond?
So item 34 was brought up as part of the Measure LL conversation. That's the Colby software. This is the second half of it coming from Fund 40.
I'm sorry, 35, 36, and 37.
Those are Fund 40 items. That's a certificate of participation.
Do you have any more questions? Okay. I kind of have a question. Why is it the Vista Magnet Metal, that's not Measure LL project?
This is an additional project of Vista Magnet Middle regarding mold that occurred in a classroom and the need for the replacement of a relocatable to replace the classroom. So this is a completely separate project from the Measure LL purview that occurred before.
And is it getting replaced with another portable?
We're reviewing that with the architect. It is the recommendation that it would be cheaper to replace with a portable than to try to remediate that particular classroom.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Item 37, building and maintenance. I'm assuming that's the Vista High School building in. Am I in the wrong school?
That's building and modernization, yes. This was a contract regarding a separate service during the process of demolition. This was about demolition and making sure that we were taking care of asbestos and other hazardous
What
materials.
was that at Vista High?
That was a Vista.
Okay, thank you. That was the question. Thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, are you fine with everything else? You just accept, we want to bring back item, what's that? Item 14. So I will,
Yeah.
entertain a motion to approve item 16A minus, oh wait, I'm sorry, I have a question. This, discretionary funds for Dennis, Woolriver and Kelly. What was that for?
What item again?
No, number two. Number two, sorry.
WK,
50,000.
it's HR.
That was to retain that. Okay. That was to retain outside legal services for a complaint.
Thank you. All right, so now I will entertain a motion to approve item 16A with minus number 14, which will be brought back at a later date, hopefully the next board meeting. So I will entertain a motion. Somebody would care to move.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Martin.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Markov. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I believe we're going on item 17A. Give me a moment, I can't. find it. There it is.
This is correct.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
you choose those.
All right, I choose to abstain. Item 17A is to ratify purchase orders, and as I've stated before, I own stock in one of the companies that, and not a lot, I don't have to abstain, but I choose to abstain from this item, so that's why it's separated out from consent. So if, anybody well, I guess we take a motion, so I will entertain a motion to approve item 17A.
A motion to, approve item 17A.
Okay, so moved by trustee Markov. Anybody to second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by trustee or Vice President Martin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And one abstention. Thank you. Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. Thank you. Okay, and item 17B, first in our report.
Give me 1 second, I'm pulling it up.
Sure.
Almost right. Okay, take it away.
Thank you very much. President Morocco, Vice President Martin, members of the Board of Trustees, we present to you this evening the first interim report. I'm joined this evening by Ms. Anna Machado, our Executive Director of All Financial Services. As we move through this, we've broken this down on the second slide between 4 distinct sections of this presentation this evening. The first is background knowledge, the requirements for this report, key terms and definitions. We want to make sure that we have transparency with the public, financial assumptions, the method and the process that was used for the development of the report. Next is the first interim report itself. Just as a summary overview, the staff recommendations, summary of the county report. Why do we count a county report? We actually didn't generate this report. The San Diego County Office of Education, the approving authority, generated this report. And then the funding report that goes around that. Next up would be the look ahead, just what has come out from the Legislative Analyst's Office for their general overview, and other factors for board consideration. Now, this is a presentation this evening. We do include the entire 123-page report along with this on the agenda item. We also included this year a summary top sheet of those items for the public to be able to see, including the definitions. So that way, as they're looking through, we hope that will provide some additional transparency for them. After we're done with the look ahead, we'll have our conclusions, next steps, and any board member comments on these items. As we look to key terms and definitions, we really need to start at the beginning. We don't get to define the terms any way we want. This is actually done at the governmental federal level, the Government Accounting Standards Board, GATSB. They have various statements that define these words. Statement 54 establishes how governmental agencies, were considered governmental agencies, should represent their fund balances. That's so that way across the nation, there is a standard in place for the public to be able to understand how governments manage money. There are generally these major categories, 5 major categories: non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, unassigned, or unappropriated, as defined within GATSB 54. Other keys to this presentation and understanding the first interim are items such as beginning balance, ending balance expenditures, financial assumptions, functions, multi-year projections, object, reserve for economic uncertainties. That's the full title of it. We sometimes just refer to it as reserve, but there's a full title and a specific title for that line item. And in addition, what are revenues? What is that standardized accounting code structure? That's from the state. We don't get to decide how we want to do it. That's called the SACS. And the report, the 123 pages, is called the SACS report for that reason. And then transfer and other sources. All of these come into play within those reports. When we look at why we're here, we have ed code requirements and assembly bill requirements that call upon us to conduct interim reports. Remember, we do a first interim, a second interim. And if we have some items in place and we have a positive certification, meaning that the county certifies that we have a way forward for a multi-year budget, then we are not required to give a third interim. If we do not meet the county requirements, we're required to provide a third interim in often cases. So key elements here are the must. You must have the financial data to be collected within 45 days of the close of each of the periods. So that October 31st, January 31st period. We have to provide, the district must provide the multi-year projections. Remember, we're not just looking at 1 year. We have to look 3 years out. There are additional considerations. One of the additional considerations that many school boards are encountering this year, and you will notice with us, is that these are due December 15th. Some school boards are having their date after their board meeting after December 15th. You still have to file it by December 15th. It's one of the reasons we asked the county to run the report, so we would have all of that information from them, and they would have already pre-looked at and told us what our status is. We have to report by object and fund, which we do within full reports, and then we have to evaluate the district financial status, and we have to give you what the predictions are based upon the rules that we have in place. So there are financial assumptions. This is a specific term, and some of the assumptions that were made have to do with our positive certification status. Okay, now we received a tentative or provisional positive certification from the county because we had passed a board resolution last school year stating that there would be an additional $4.5 million cut from the budget. We didn't identify how to do that, but we made a resolution. And for that reason, the county said, until we see specifically how you're going to go about doing that, we're only going to give you a provisional positive certification. That was in a letter that was presented to the board. So the board resolution is one of those assumptions that was made. Now, you did actually complete the commitment for that. You did the early retirement program. It meets the commitment of $4.5 million at minimum. We have a verification of 263 participants within there, which exceeds the $4.5 million level if that's a choice the board makes. But you did commit to $4.5 million as the board. We have the ending balances. We have some things that we know that are happening. The facilities maintenance budget costs have increased by a certain amount. We know other additional information is listed here. Some of this information is verifiable information, meaning we are using figures that have been agreed upon by the county office and state sources. For example, the cost of living allocation. That's not our numbers. Those are agreed upon numbers projecting for this year at 1.07%, and in the future years, upwards of about 3% for each additional year. Okay. We also include in here that we have no new information about additional one-time funds coming our way. The one-time funds that have expired have gone away. We have no extension periods, although we have had periods where we have been notified that we have a longer time to report on them, but not expense them. So if they're not expensed, they take them back because those are funds that are restricted funds. So the method was a 6-step process that we listed out for you here. We gathered the general information with that October 31 deadline, meeting all of the requirements, followed the rules, walked down. We generated all of these items, but we actually had the county come in and do the reporting. So that's what we're going to be looking at, the county reporting. We were required to put this on file according to Ed Code. Based upon the method and the process, the financials assumptions made, on slide 8, we have our summary. Our summary is that we recommend that the board accept the 2024-25 first interim report as filed with the San Diego County Office of Education. The overall finding is that we would meet the requirements, the baseline minimum requirements for positive certification. And that is our recommendation. An overview of the indicators, resources are declining, and significantly so, as we anticipated. That's because the one-time dollars and the restricted funds are going away. Most notably, we've spoken about ESSER funds and additional funds that are going away. So the decline is about 93 million. The beginning balance is predicted to decline by about 80 million. The expenditures decline only by about 40 million. We spoke about this in previous budgeting cycles, that this is called a structured deficit spending cycle. It is a plan. It's not an accident. The reserve for economic uncertainty. Now, we have a board policy here at the board level that says it must be at a 5%. But in order to demonstrate solvency as a district that we can pay all our bills, the board did vote in budget development that level would move from 5% to 3% on the third year. So we are not in compliance with the board policy, but we meet the state legal minimum requirement of 3%. Our ending balance declines by 54 million, but our overall status, according to our 3-year report, is that we are able to demonstrate, a positive certification status or solvency. So what does this look like on a top line sheet? Because again, we have the full report available to the entire community and yourself. When you look across the top, you have in blue this year, pink is the following year, and then 26-27 is in yellow. And what you have in each of those areas is the unrestricted amounts, the restricted amounts, and the combined amounts for the beginning balance, then the revenues, then all of your total resources, then your predicted expenditures based upon budgets. And then what is the net increase or decrease with, if it's in parentheses, that's a decrease. And then what is the projected end balance based upon that? And you will see it going down the line as it decreases in that structured deficit plan and cycle through 26-27. At its highest level, what that looks like from the unrestricted versus restricted side, both being important, are listed on slide 10. On slide 10, you'll see that the beginning balance declines by about $25 million. The total resources decline by about 24.5 million. Expenditures in unrestricted increase by 6.8 million. That's as things move from the restricted side to the unrestricted side. When we look at the net increase, decrease, increase over -11 million to over -17 million for the total amount. And the ending balance goes from 46 million to a predictive in year 3 of about 14.7 million. When we look at the restricted resources, we see a similar pattern in some areas and some differences in others. We see a decline of about 54.8 million. The total the resources decline for about 69.2 million. That's because we know massive amounts of funds are not coming in. Expenditures decline dramatically by about 46.2 million. The net increase decrease declines from about -41 million to about -9.9, and the ending balance declines from 44 million to about 21.2 million in that source. So unrestricted and restricted are important. However, The rules regarding government accounting state when you calculate your percentages to demonstrate solvency, you have to use unrestricted. You can't pull restricted in. Therefore, when we look at it from this sort of lens and this overview, when we look at this year, our reserve for economic uncertainty down there is at 5%. Our unrestricted end balance percentage that we look at as what we think will happen by the end of this year is 11.99%. As we look in outlying years, you will see on the next year in pink, just on unrestricted, we're leaving that balance at 5% for reserves for economic uncertainties. We still have 9.23% in unrestricted. That's part of that deficit spending. And as you look further down the line, you drop it to 3%, you end up with 4.25%. Keep in mind that 4.25% has that economic reserve in it. It's not a separate line. That's all together. So when you look down the line, you can see particularly under the unassigned unappropriated amount, which starts at 16.7 million, it declines across the line each year till we get down in year 3 with the current budget that was passed. When the county runs the numbers, they come back with $884,000 left in that area. So that is the progression across the board.
Oh, I'm looking for the 880.
Right here.
It's right above where it says 3%.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
And right
Okay, I
above.
gotcha. Okay, great.
Yeah. I know it's little tiny numbers. We tried to blow them up as big as we
Yeah,
could.
and I have old eyes.
So that is an overview as the report. Again, this was run by the county. They've already have it on file and they find for positive certification. As we look ahead, the first interim is part of a cycle that starts us in the conversation. It's just a start of a report that starts the cycle as we look forward to building a budget as we move forward. The first thing that generally comes out is the Legislative Analyst's Office and their winter report for 2024. We gave you a quote from them. Their overall recommendation was, just given the risk of the uncertainties that the state's face in the coming year, that they are recommending that the state tap into its own reserve for economic uncertainties to help stabilize education budget. They also had several other key findings. Now, we also have included in a Friday letter the full LAO report for your review. But some of their other findings sort of are a finding of balance. They have stated that some of the state revenues are ahead of the broader economy, meaning that's a good thing. But they've also said that this is completely offset by higher costs. They have said that there is weak growth for this year, moderate possible growth in the outlying years is their financial assumption as they make these predictions. For the Prop 98 guarantee, they believe that this amount may end up being higher at 2.6%, but they also said that legally that has got to go into that reserve. It's one of the reasons why they are making a recommendation that the reserve for economic uncertainties be tapped into for the next upcoming year. They predict moderate COLAs, which is currently what we predict. What their final figure will be, we'll see over time. Sometimes they go a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but that's not a figure within our control. That's calculated outside of us. But the number one thing that they've cautioned against in the LAO report is districts that are experiencing declining enrollment, which is 80% of the school districts in the state of California, that all of the economic uncertainties at the state or perhaps federal level, that is your declining enrollment, that is the one you need to pay the most attention to at your local level, because that is one that is directly impacting your funding in a way that you will have to take some action on at some juncture. So for considerations for developing budgets on slide 13, we've summarized some of the items that have been discussed by staff over the last 6 to 9 months. We do have continuing declining enrollment. It is calculated on a 3-year rolling average. What does that mean for us? Well, it means that as it starts to slide more and more down, it actually catches up with you retroactively. It's about a math equation. So the 3 years starts to catch up and we're at that point. And that was demonstrated by my predecessor and by our demographers, that we are at that juncture that is starting to catch up. The reserve for economic uncertainties, again, because year 3 does not meet board policy, we're obligated as a staff to say out loud, we do meet the state minimum, but we do not meet the board policy requirements. For the early retirement, a minimum of 4.5 million has been committed to, with additional considerations having to be decided upon by the board as we move into January, February, March, April in the next budgeting cycle. It's at that time that the board will need to make critical decisions regarding staff level. For that reason, we do have some recommendations to either put micro workshops or some other form of workshop in action, because these are really complicated topics to look at. What are your options? For facilities, amount currently funded primarily, as we demonstrated with the long-range facility master plan review, primarily comes from one-time funding. Up on the screen is the same graphic that was used in previous presentations. The blue represented funding item, the gray represents all of the unfunded items that were called out in the long-range facility master plan. And then cash flow, even when you have a budget that can be balanced, your cash flow is a different matter. Your cash flow is your ability to have enough cash on hand in the bank to pay your bills. And for our cash flow, we need to make sure we have enough reserve available to make payroll, pay all of our bills on a timely basis. Now, there are mechanisms that we can make recommendations to boards if we do not have enough money for cash flow. Some of those recommendations include selling tax revenue anticipation notes. These are short-term, high-yield bonds, but you pay interest rates on those, which means your deficit becomes greater and you have to address it in a different way. There are other options that oftentimes happen, including discussions of deferment cycles and other things that we haven't talked about historically as a district. But we do want to pay careful attention to, can we make cash flow? And right now, year 3 has a very narrow amount for cash flow. However, on the question of solvency, which is our primary objective to prove in the first interim, we have been able to demonstrate to the County Office of Education, they have run the reports and the numbers, and they have found that we do demonstrate solvency at the 3% level for economic reserves and for each of those additional amounts. For next steps, we have discussion and feedback. The first interim report is currently on file with the San Diego County Office of Education as required for Ed Code. We are asking the board to accept the first interim report according to Ed Code, but to accept it as an indication of positive certification to remain on file with the county. Then we also recommend we start that process in January, February of talking about what are the staffing levels, which will be a primary driver of the budget. Recall in previous presentations, our staffing accounts for anywhere on some years, 80 to 92% of the entire budget. So we have to address that as we're moving forward. And we do recommend doing that in some form of micro workshops or workshops on budgeting and staffing in the upcoming months. So that way we can be of service to you and your questions and get you feedback in a timely way. With that, Madam President, Mr. Studio, Dr. Doyle, we turn it over to you as the overview of the first interim.
All right, thank you. So we are giving up, I want to avoid extending the meeting if we can't all do that. But this is a very important topic, so I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to ask their questions and get their discussion. So I will ask for questions. Any questions? No? One? Trustee Alward?
With regards to the board policy where it was approved to maintain a 5% reserve. And I see that in the final year, we won't have that. Where and when is a good time to have that discussion with the trustees on whether we want to try to follow that or not follow it and modify it or get rid of it? When would be an appropriate time to discuss that with this board?
Sure, I would make a recommendation that we do that in the course of the workshops for budget development. As it is a standing board policy would be the administrative law of the district. So we can disregard that for a long-term projection, but we should codify what the actual policy is and make sure that we follow it.
And my feedback would be to bring that back for a discussion and a special workshop for budget, if my fellow trustees would be in favor of that.
So the other thing I would follow up with, Dr. Lusher, is if the board wants to have discussion about the current board policy and the reserve, it would be better to have it at the beginning of the budget development process because what that would do is give the board a parameter of what they're shooting for.
Okay.
It's good for us as a team to know what is your goal. Is your goal 3% in the third year? Is your goal 5%? Is your goal 7%? And from there, then we can build staffing structures and everything else to address that.
So you're saying that that would be this year that we would work
Oh, yeah.
on? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay, thank you.
January, February, when I would recommend.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask you real quick question? What is an unrestricted ending balance percentage?
We can calculate that out for you for that. We don't report that back to the county on a regular basis as part of their consideration for solvency. Because restricted, if you do not spend it in the way that is allocated, it is not our money to keep. We must return it. The second is because oftentimes when you get a restricted budget, it's not an annual budget. It's not a single year. They make you account for sometimes 2, 3, 4 years of budgetary items because that's the funding cycle. But we can certainly count that out and prepare it for the trustee.
Okay, I guess I just wanted a quick definition of what this, the end number of, so under, ending balance is page 11, I think.
Okay, I was trying to get to the right page.
And,
Oh, my apologies.
that's okay. I just wanted to understand what an ending balance percentage is. For, it looks like it's unrestricted funds.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's calculated on the total expenses for the district. So combined expenses, restricted and unrestricted, we divide the unrestricted fund and balance by that number and we obtain that percentage.
Thank you.
Thank you. I misunderstood
No,
your
that's
question.
okay.
I thought you were asking for restricted, but unrestricted.
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, see, Matt, is there an action item? Any action items?
You have to accept.
You would vote to accept the
Okay.
first interim.
So is that, we do that now?
Yes.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to accept the first interim report. Anybody want to move that?
I so move.
Okay, moved by trustee Markov. Any second? I second. Okay, so it was moved by trustee Markov, second by trustee Morocco. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Oh,
Can we take a bathroom break?
of
please?
course, yes, yeah. Let's take a bathroom break. Thank you for asking. Okay, so we will take an 8 I'm readjourning the meeting. I know we're minutes past, but I want to get out of here. I hope we can get out before 10:30. Okay, so with that, we will move on to item 17C, the calendar committee. And Rachel, you've got 2 minutes.
I'll be quick. I'll be quick, I promise. I don't like pushing the button. Good evening. So the calendar committee updates include the 25-26 and the 26-27 school year updates. And basically, these updates are adding the professional development days that didn't exist in the contract prior to these years. And so at this point, the changes are identified by the bullets. I can go through those, but the main addition are the district PD days that the committee has identified would best fit in the calendar.
Okay, thank you. Is there, do we just need to accept it?
Yes.
Okay, any questions? Okay, any discussion? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the calendars for, I think, what is that, item 17C? Do we have a motion to approve? I will move to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, moved by myself and seconded by trustee Martin. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, trustee Alvarado, did you have a question? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we move on to 17D. I'm sorry, Rachel, do you mind if I?
You go right ahead. Have a good
Okay,
time.
does anybody need the presentation? For the LIU?
This is on the.
It's the athletic trainer. This is the athletic trainer. Okay, all right, then I will entertain a motion to approve item 7, the memorandum of understanding between Vista Unified and CSEA regarding the athletic trainer incentive. Anyone care to make the motion? I will make the motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by myself, seconded by trustee Martin. And any further questions? Discussion? Okay, and seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So that's 5-0. Okay, the next one is item 17E, the memorandum of understanding with VTA regarding providing student support for alternative diploma pathways. Is there anybody that needs the presentation? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve item 17D. Was that right? 17E, sorry, 17E.
I motion.
Okay, so, motion by trustee Markov, seconded by trustee Martin. Any further questions? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next one is the tentative agreement, between CSEA, what is this? This, Vista Unified School District and California School Employees Association, and it's chapter 389. Rachel, is this,
Leave policies.
these are what?
So these are the tentative agreements between CSEA and the
Okay.
district regarding reopeners for the 24-25 school
Okay.
year.
All right, anybody care to move? Anybody need the presentation?
I need a little bit of explanation.
Okay, so we have one trustee that would like the explanation. Go for it. Rachel, you're on.
And I can go through the whole thing? I get to go?
Just summarize.
Okay.
What are we looking at?
So, these are reopeners. So each group.
There are multiple articles.
Yeah, so on page 48, we have tentative agreements for, Article 8, 9, 16, and 24. And throughout here, there's also a classified salary schedule of a salary increase of 0.70, which was equivalent to the benefits that the teachers received this year. So they took that on salary for all of their employees. And so there were just various other costs, but if you look at the funding sources, general fund, restricted, unrestricted, some are the for staffing for adult ed, CNS is involved, and then some come from the building fund to pay for the salaries mostly. Now you kind of threw me.
Okay, anybody else, any other questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve item 17F.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Martin, seconded by trustee Markov. Any further question or discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The next one, 17G, is the approving of the summer, classified summer assistance program. Does anybody need the presentation for that? No? Seeing none, that is my baby, and I'm going to make, sorry, Rachel, she's.
Can I go over this year's data?
Which one is that?
A slide,
Right here.
the slide on the 24-25 participation data, keep going down.
Okay, well, let's get, when we get there, you let me know. When we get to that.
We're there.
That's the only
Oh,
one
we're there,
that's-
that's on the, okay, go for it.
So this is just updating the board on how many employees participated this year. So there was a large number. The interesting fact this year is the state did not fund the one-to-one match. They only funded 0.64 cents per dollar. So this year, the state did fund additional funds to go into this because it was quite popular this year with multiple districts. And so right now, the district cost, because we do pay the payroll taxes on the money that the state provides. And there also is a little bit of a gap when we pay out and when we receive funds. So in July, we would pay out the total of 839,000 plus the 537. The 839 is sitting in an account. The 537 would not be received by the state until after we request it in July. So just pointing that out, we pay first, we get reimbursed later. Since this is our first year, not quite sure how long that takes, but that's something that impacts cash flow, right? So that's money that's paid out in July, for the month of July, when employees are not working and receiving a paycheck. And then we request it from the state in July, the end of July, and then I'm not quite sure, I will report back on the time span there.
Okay, thank you. Since this is my baby, I would like to be the one to make the motion, so I move that we approve the classified summer assistance program. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by myself and seconded by trustee Markov. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, so then the next one is that Vista Magnet Middle front entrance improvement. Okay, and is there an action item? Is there an action on this,
Yeah,
Sean?
there's an action all.
These were covered in the Measure L out
Okay.
presentation. These are items G, H, I, J, K.
Okay,
all.
so does anybody need the presentation again? Okay, seeing none, I will I will entertain a motion to approve item 17H.
Second.
No, you move. You need to move.
Oh, I'd like to move.
Okay, trustee, moved by trustee Markov, seconded by myself. And any further questions? Discussion, seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now, any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. On to item 17I. Vista Magnet Middle final construction cost change order. We already had the presentation. So does anybody need a refresher on this? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve item 17I.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Martin, seconded by trustee Marco. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next is 17J, the Balfour Beatty Notice of Completion. That's for Vista Magnet Middle. Does anybody need the presentation again? See none, I will entertain a motion to approve item 17J.
So moved.
It's moved by trustee Martin,
Second.
seconded by trustee Markov. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 17K, Vista High School New Classroom Buildings Architect record contract modification. I believe this was also in Measure LL, so does anybody need a refresher on this? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to pass item 17K. I'll entertain a motion. Okay, so motion by trustee Markov,
Second.
seconded by trustee Martin. All those, any further questions, discussion? All those in favor, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously, sorry. Motion carries unanimously. Now moving on to item 17L, Vista Unified School District presentation. This one I do think, do we have somebody to do doing this presentation?
Well, ma'am, I included a presentation. This is actually a recommendation from the Climate Action Committee.
Gotcha.
In previous year, we were successful in partnering with the city and local governments. We are currently using 75% all renewable resource energy, removing about 2,250 metric tons of carbon from the air each year. We're making a recommendation that based upon our LED lighting system, that we can do a cost offset. And we can actually, for no additional cost to the district, we can move to 100% renewable resources. And we would like to pilot this for the next 6 months. It will remove another 750 metric tons of carbon from the atmosphere.
And are there any grants for that?
There are no particular grants for this item. This actually is a nominal resource, although we did have a grant for the LED lighting system, which is how we implemented that. But we actually anticipate this will be a wash and there won't be any additional expense to the district.
Awesome. Does, anybody have any questions?
You anticipate no additional cost, correct?
That's correct.
I see, Clean Energy Alliance is mentioned in the presentation. I know we have a representative, so if you could come give like a 2-minute summary of what it is.
Rob is here for us.
2 minutes, Rob.
Let me get that back out.
We're ready for your close-up.
Thank you for your patience.
Superintendent Doyle, President.
You gotta push the button.
Superintendent Doyle, President Morocco, board. 100%, we have 3 individual levels. We have the level you are now is at what we call our Clean Impact Plus. It's 75% carbon free. They're up on the screen. And so what we're proposing is that we move to 100% renewable energy. And what that will do, because of the offset that he's talking about, now you're also gaining the credit for the district at being at 100% renewable. So were there any areas in particular you'd like for me to address outside of what's actually in the presentation?
Just one question. I know the city is part of the Clean Energy Alliance.
Yes.
And so the district, we are not mandated, but we can opt in. Is that
That
accurate?
is correct. You currently are a customer, and the city also is what we call one of our green impact champions. Part of what we do is we do market the fact that you are one of our green impact champions when you are at 100%, and we'll work with you on sharing that information because it's good for people to know the municipal accounts for the city are at 100%.
My question, is concerning, because our district overlaps from unincorporated county land to Oceanside and Vista municipality, how does that work for the schools that say are in the county? Do we have a couple in the county, right, or not? Do we have any, is Monte Vista in the county?
No, Radford or
Yeah, so it is regardless of county or fund, or so regardless of whether it's in the county location, so any district facility or in a city location, whether it's the city of Oceanside, our electrical consumption would all be 100% renewable at any site.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Howard. Thank you, and we need to vote on this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, I will entertain a motion to approve the Clean Energy Alliance.
I move to approve the piloting of the Green Impact Champion Program with the Clean Energy
Moved by
Alliance.
trustee Alvarado. Any,
A second?
seconded by trustee Markov. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any
Thank you
abstentions?
so much.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And I have to get back to my agenda. Okay, so then the next one is 17M to approve the resolution to piggyback with San Ysidro. Anybody need the presentation on this? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve item 17M. I will move to approve 17M to piggyback for the copier pricing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions? Discussion? And just for our new trustees, I'm not sure if you understand what a piggyback is. It's where we get a discount, we share in a discount from bulk. Okay, so seeing no more questions or discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next is 17N, approved resolution 25-8, South County Support Services. Does anybody need the presentation on this? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve 17N, to approve the resolution authorizing the use of South County Support Services agency bid awarded to Creative Bus Sales. Anybody?
Motion?
Okay, so moved by trustee Markov, second. Second by Vice President Martin. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We skipped 17O. We are on to 17P, discuss and nominate a California School Board Association Delegate Assembly Representative for 1 and 2 year terms. I nominate Vice President Martin for this. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion?
You want to go over the commitment? Or do you know? Yeah, I would guess that you would probably want to know what the commitment is.
Yes.
Perhaps, trustee Vargas, you can go over the commitment.
Yeah, it's a 2-year commitment. There's a delegate assembly during the summer in Sacramento, and then there's the annual education conference, but there's 2 days prior to the delegate assembly, or 2 days prior to the annual education conference, where there's a delegate assembly similar to like CTA, where, we talk about bylaws, talk about priorities, get legislative reports, talk about, what are the big issues impacting a school district. And with that, in addition to that, there's monthly meetings with the San Diego delegation. And so they typically meet the 3rd Monday of each month. It's a hybrid, so sometimes they are in person, sometimes they are virtual, sometimes they're both. But with they also alternate because we also want to go visit school sites. So for any of the big priorities that the San Diego delegation has identified, they'll select different school sites to visit.
I would like a 1-year commitment, please.
A 1-year commitment. Can we do that a 1 year?
No, it's a 2-year commitment.
It's a 2-year
I thought
commitment.
there was a 1 year and a 2 year.
This is 2 representatives.
Two representatives. Got it.
Okay.
We have 1 representative.
Okay. And I'll nominate myself.
Second.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so, any questions or discussion? No? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the vote to approve myself and Vice President Martin to be the delegates to the CSBA. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so now we are on to board business, item 18. The proposed VUSD dates. Does anybody have any conflicts to the proposed dates?
None.
Pretty sure. I do not. Anybody else? Okay, so seeing,
Hold on, can you give me
Sure.
30 seconds?
And there's a couple things I have to talk about as soon as you're finished with this portion of it. Before you approve it.
okay,
But you're doing, what you need to do now is the most important. And the most important are the regularly scheduled meetings. Because we can't change them once they're set.
but we can change the workshops and the governance meetings,
Correct.
so let me see.
The October 9th, I have a conflicting meeting. That's the one that does not work in my head.
So, I am good all around there. I'm good on the 2nd, I'm good on the 16th. Does anybody else have any conflicts with that?
December 16.
Oh, no, okay, well, first of all, yeah, okay, we'll get to December, but we're talking about, trustee Vargas has a
Oh, I'm sorry.
conflict on October 9th. Does Is everybody, what dates, does the second or the, 16th? Does that work for, okay, so is there a preference for anybody? The 16th, I like that one too,
October 16th?
October 16th. So, all right, so I'm good with that. And then you said, Mike, you said December 16th?
Yeah.
Is there, Dr. Doyle, is there a reason why we need to have that? That's a Tuesday. So that's organization meeting. It's our organization. Yeah, sort of, but we're not swearing in new members.
So go ahead, Sean.
I apologize, Madam President. I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you from the presentation earlier. If you choose a December 16th meeting, you will be after the first interim filing date, which you may do. But then the district is legally obligated to file it before board approval.
Now, is there something in our bylaws saying that we have to elect officers 100 days after the last reorganization or?
Yes, yes, there's a requirement.
So unfortunately.
That's why it's always that week.
Does it have,
there's
but
competing initiatives.
we could, maybe, but could we do it on a day other than Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay,
How about the 18th?
Well, then you would still be outside of,
Oh, I.
so we're trying to work within two parameters.
I see.
One is the governing board, what you've accomplished tonight, and the second is the first interim, and they're almost like competing initiatives.
Correct. And my only purpose is to advise the board president that that would be the case.
Yeah.
It is still your prerogative to
It's
do
okay,
that.
there's nothing wrong with that.
what about the 15th, would that work?
But on Monday, we typically don't hold meetings on Monday because we have an agreement with the Vista
Yes.
Teachers
Gotcha,
Association.
gotcha,
We
okay,
don't do that.
so why don't we do I'm good with the 18th, if we move it to the 18th, does that work for everyone, if we moved it to the 18th?
I would have to double check on that, because there is a law on the timing of it, and that's why we always have it on a Tuesday and on a Thursday.
Okay,
So I would
So-
have to double check.
why don't we hold off on that December
What about the week before?
The 9th.
9th? Well, there's a thing that says it's like, no, it's okay, because you're new, you don't know this. There's something about having it like
The governance-
320 days after the.
It's a rule, we can.
Yeah.
do the rule, but
Yeah.
I think the best approach would be to leave it on the 16th.
Okay.
With
Yeah,
the
and
understanding with the
even-
board
yeah.
that the first interim report is filed with them prior to the board meeting. But that's an acceptance anyways, it's not an action item. So you're not making any budget decisions, like tonight, when you accepted it, there was no budget decision was made. You just acknowledged that it's a report. So I recommend you just leave it the way it is, because then we're in compliance within the governance standards of identifying your board.
But we can elect the board, if we wanted to have a special meeting to elect our board officers,
It has to be a regularly scheduled.
a regular schedule meeting. No, unfortunately, he can't attend on Zoom, that's not,
There
they
are
took
reasons
that
that
away.
fall within those reasons.
Yeah, unless you're sick, yeah, which,
Break a leg.
so. Unfortunately, that's the one meeting that can't be moved.
It's awkward.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike,
That's right.
yeah, thank you, I apologize.
So, in addition to the regular meetings, we'll talk through a couple others. We mentioned earlier that in April 24th, we have a special board meeting. This date can be changed. You just can't change the regularly scheduled meeting. We also have that governance workshop I mentioned earlier on January 23rd. On the very bottom of the agenda, there are other considerations that are not evidenced on here because I needed the board to be together to have a discussion about it. One example is the board annually meets with principals for the purpose of talking directly with them about achievement. We normally do that in January. I did not identify it up here yet because the meetings that we identified on the regular schedule here are the requirements. Typically, based on feedback we've gotten from previous board members and current sitting board members, it's probably better to break up elementary and secondary because it's too many people for you to understand everything. So you probably should do two separate workshops. It's unfortunate that we have to get you together two more times, but if you want to have a meaningful conversation with principals, you should have two separate workshops. It does not have to happen in January, it could happen in February. But I would encourage you to do it between January and February, because it gets further along in the year. You know, it's kind of a moot point as we get there. And then in addition to that, Also,
We have 6 minutes.
yeah, there's board goals and metrics. And so as you're thinking as a board, and we're making, and you're giving me direction to work with staff to adjust the budget, we have to have conversations about the budget as well. Now, we can embed that in as a micro workshop, and what that means is we can embed it into the regularly scheduled board meetings. So that each board meeting, we have like a 30-minute session, quick session. So you're constantly giving us feedback as we're developing the budget draft for the April special board meeting. That's what I recommend. So what's on the table right now is for you to agree on 2 workshops for our principals in January, February, and to include in your regular scheduled meetings, micro workshops on the budget.
And
That's
those,
on the table.
the principal meetings have not been
They have not been identified yet.
identified yet. Okay, can we come back in January and schedule those?
Yes, you can.
Okay, what I would think that that's what we should do at this point, because we need to get through the rest of the agenda and we have 5
No
minutes.
problem.
Okay, so
You just have to approve the agenda as is or with any revisions you would like.
we moved the October meeting, so.
Changing 1 to 16, right?
So, yes, I will entertain a motion to approve these annual meeting dates with the revision to the October, was it?
16.
To the October 16th meeting.
Chris, did you get that?
Okay, I would, did I move or did I say I didn't entertain it? Okay, I move. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by myself and seconded by trustee Martin. Okay, and then the board member committee assignments.
Here's another one. If I
We
can-
didn't vote.
Oops, I'm
You're
sorry.
right, thank you. Is there any further questions or discussions on the calendar? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstentions? Okay, motion carries unanimously.
The trustee Morocco, President Morocco, the last item, you do not have to vote on tonight if you don't want. You can look at it and we can actually go over it and make final determinations at the board governance workshop in January. It's not a requirement to vote on it. It was a requirement to vote on the meeting dates, but this is not a requirement.
Is there anybody that absolutely wants to do this right now, or is there anybody that objects to postponing this to the January meeting?
Are you talking about A or?
Committee.
The committee assignments? No?
I propose that we postpone to, the January meeting so that we can look at the dates and our calendars.
Yeah.
And see if we have another conflict on that night, another commitment, so that we have better time to really see what we are available to be part of.
Was that a motion? You said propose.
No,
Oh, we would, yeah, yes.
I moved to, it's not table, it's postponed to another.
Oh, yes,
date.
well, it would be a motion then to move it to the January meeting.
I move to postpone this agenda item to our January regular scheduled meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? And any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, yep, and then continuing items, okay. Sorry. 19, we are at continuing items, okay, no further comment. Request future board agenda items or other business, any of that? Nope. Board member reports or committee comments? Nope. Board member reflection on board meeting? Next regular board meeting is Thursday, January 16th. And with that, do we need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion by, trustee Markov, seconded by myself. All those in favor, say aye, and motion carries. Meeting ends at 10.